Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell. What's up? What's going on? What's good? Checking in here for August 16th, 2026 here with this edition of the Boxing Source Podcast. Big ups for everyone that's able to tune in here live, or whether it's through YouTube or Rumble. We're going to be having this available, of course, through audio form there, so that people will be able to listen to it here on demand here. So, we got a number of things that we're going to be talking about in this edition of the Boxing Source Podcast here. So, we're going to, tackle as many topics as we possibly can, here in this edition of the Boxing Source Podcast, talking about the fights that happened over in Atlanta, as many fights as possible. There on that front, I was out live in Waldorf, Maryland for, a fight card that was out there in Waldorf, Maryland. So, caught a number of local fights there yesterday. So, whenever you have the opportunity to, catch fights within the area, you should be able to see if you could go in, check it out, support the local promoters out there, whether it's covering the show or getting the tickets or something like that, be able to support because, a lot of these fighters that you've been seeing today, unless if they're signed with the big promoters like right off the rip in their pro debut, then this is how you're able to see fighters before they get to that particular level. So whenever you can, go ahead and support that. Now we are gonna try to get through as many topics as we can in this edition of the Boxing Source Podcast. Of course, we have the main event that was there in Atlanta, Georgia, with Claressa Shields going up against Kaye Scott for the unified middleweight championships. You had the WBC and WBA middleweight championships on the line, of course, with Claressa Shields coming in there undefeated. She had already been an undisputed champion there in the middleweight division, super middleweight division, and the heavyweight division. There with a record of 18-0, with 3 of those wins by way of knockout against Kaye Scott, who came in there with a pro record of 5 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw there. And, that was basically your last 3 fights. 1 win, 1 loss, 1 draw. Lost to Desley Robinson there for the vacant IBF middleweight championship. They had a draw against Olivia Curry and then won in the rematch against Olivia Curry there back in December of last year. So, that kind of set the stage here for this particular, thing here. And, we just, you're just going to go through that. Shout out to my brother Joseph that's able to listen live. And he, had already answered. He already puts in the answer, for the the first question here for the topic of the Boxing Source Podcast of this week, today. So, but, wanted to get into the whole thing with this fight. Like I was saying, this was something where, they had featured Claressa Shields there in Atlanta, Georgia. State Farm Arena had been the first female headliner there for the State Farm Arena. We've had a number of boxing events there in Atlanta, there in the State Farm Arena, like Tank Davis, has had a couple of fights there, for example, and a number of others there, over the years. But this was like the first time you would have like a female fighter be able to headline an event there in Atlanta, Georgia, like that. So they, pretty much like did it big, did as big as possible. They had Claressa Shields out there, walking to the ring with Lotto, of course, one of the like higher profile rap artists that's out there. Today I'm, kind of like old in the game and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I know of Lotto, but I don't, like listen to all of her tracks or nothing like that. I couldn't name you one song title from Lotto. I can tell you that right now. Okay, but like I said, around that age group, she's like one of the hotter artists that's out there. So, you have Lotto bringing out Claressa Shields to the ring. Of course, she's, introduced as undefeated, gold medalist 2 times, undisputed in multiple weight divisions. And, just put in there to, compete for the unified middleweight championships. With her last fight, she had that rematch against Fred Sean Cruz's arm there, and that was like in the heavyweight division, a few months back. So she goes from heavyweight and then down to middleweight here for this bout against Kaye Scott. Now, with that being said, it's like, okay, got Kaye Scott there with like 7 pro fights overall. And with that, like I said, with the rematch, was able to win unified titles with that rematch against Olivia Curry. So this was like something to where it's like, okay, Claressa Shields, she'd probably be highly favored to get the win here. And then if she does, she'll be able to be a unified champion in the middleweight once again. Okay. Now I will say this: was able to catch a few highlights here and there, or sometimes or some instances with Claressa Shields being in action. Like she looked pretty good there, pretty sharp. Obviously with with John David Jackson, there's a trainer. But at times when I had seen her perform or fight in a heavyweight division, she would get up to a certain point within the fight, and then her like activity level kind of went down a little bit significantly because of fatigue and things like that. Here, I didn't necessarily see that all too much against Kaye Scott, but at the same token, maybe he didn't have that much resistance from Kaye Scott. I mean, that's what what I was seeing. You know what I mean? But we'll see. There, I got the live comment here from brother Alex in reference to pound for pound, and I'll talk about that here as well because that the Ring Magazine ain't the only one. Well, I would say technically Ring Magazine ain't the only one that kind of like has that pound for pound records there for women's boxing, but just wanted to continue on in reference to this fight here with Claressa Shields and Kaye Scott. That Claressa Shields, I thought was a little bit sharper there. Maybe it is to where she kind of like got herself back in the gym a little bit. Of course, with her being around that heavyweight division, and then have to get back down to the middleweight division. That she had to cut down a little bit, but you're going from I guess weighing in at around 174 for your last fight to around 160 here for this fight. So that's completely different than like as they say a middleweight. Like a man, I don't know, man, Arislandi Lara or something like that. Arislandi Lara, going for 160 and then see if he could campaign at heavyweight. And that's completely different because you would have Arislandi Lara competing at around over 200 pounds if he was like a heavyweight fighter. This here is like a lot different. So you would have to really mess with all that all too tough, right? So with Claressa Shields, I thought like she moved a little bit better, was throwing more punches or throwing punches more fluently in this bout against Kaye Scott. It was that for this bout, I would say the question would have been, okay, is she going to be able to get a knockout or a TKO victory? Because to that point she had 18 fights, but with 3 of them that ended by a stoppage or knockout. But and her last like knockout win was back in 2024 against Vanessa LePage. So I think this was one to where she was like, okay, big crowd, State Farm Arena, see if she could, finish the job and get a stoppage victory and, kind of like leave on a good note there with that if she was able to, get the stoppage victory. And, well, first she was able to score a knockdown and had the whole thing in reference to the quarter there for Kaye Scott, throwing in the towel and kind of like ended the thing there, to have it to where it was stopped. Okay, so you did have this be a stoppage victory there for Claressa Shields as you had referee Joel Scobie there waved about as the towel was thrown in. So that is going to be her fourth knockout victory of her professional career there for Claressa Shields. And she is now there at 19-0. All right. So you have Claressa Shields first off as as they say, the WBC and WBA middleweight champion. And for this, they made it, like an event, which, I call like we'll talk about, here. over the course of this segment is that they had a number of things that was happening at this point as far as like the overall card. Not just the card there through Salida Promotions, but also with what was going on with Zeus Network, as they kind of like featured Claressa Shields and her build up to this particular fight. So you have that's going on with this, and then with that being said, like how did that play a factor in having the crowd or the interest in the overall event? Because we're going to talk about the whole thing with like I was saying, Ray J and Orlando Brown being part of that whole celebrity portion of the card. But other than that, I would say that having a number of notable figures out there in attendance for this event and for this fight. Yes, you did have Shakur Stevenson that was there. You did have Floyd Mayweather that was there. You did have Terrence Crawford that was there. You had like a number of music artists that were there in attendance for this fight, for this event. So that was the thing. Said was told that it was a packed house. It said that it was a sold out event. Now they did that, and they were able to do that. That they really pushed for it because leading into fight week and things like that. We're seeing if they were gonna have the tickets sold in order to make the event be sold out. And so, well, as of right now, as far as like the reports are, they were able to have it sell out. So that would be a good look, there for Claressa Shields. We get the numbers in and stuff like that to where it really wouldn't matter what who the opponent would be next for Claressa Shields. The demand would be there, or enough demand would be there for Claressa Shields to get back in the ring and have a fight that'll be lucrative enough, or something like that. Or that the numbers would make sense because remember she had the whole deal with Win Records and signed that new deal while being under Salida Promotions. So they said that that's going to be like a 7-figure type deal. So maybe they're able to get something here with this particular event, having this win the way that it is, that maybe they get a good amount of return for the investment for this, because of course we do talk business a lot, here at the Boxing Source and through the Boxing Source podcast, and so sometimes we are able to crush the numbers or look at figures or potential figures for these events. So I like to see what the gate would be for this fight that happened yesterday at State Farm Arena. But you have that as far as like the overall result there for Claressa Shields, and she is now they're unified in the middleweight division, and that opens up a number of possibilities that could be out there within middleweight. The previous weekend, we did have Tam Tebow win the other two world titles there in the middleweight division with her win over Destiny Robinson, who, like I said, had already, scored a win over Kaye Scott some time back, right? So you got all of that that's going on there within the middleweight division. Uh, at least there with Tam Tebow, she did kind of like mention potentially fight Claressa Shields, after getting that decision win that she got in the previous weekend. So that's like one potential matchup there for Claressa Shields, and there could be another one that is floating out there. And it was also brought up because this fighter was also in attendance there, and she's currently there as a welterweight, but she'll be fighting at super welterweight on August 29th, and that's Michaela Mayer, who's facing Chantel Cameron over at the UK there. So that's going to be part of that MVPW series and everything like that. So she still has to take care of business there against Chantel Cameron, because we all know Chantel Cameron is like one of the higher rated fighters in women's boxing as well. So got to have that happen. Now, question here from brother Joe. He says, like, how much of that crowd was there for the circus celebrity matchup? She's never pulled that kind of a crowd before. That had been the big question. You know, having those fights that were part of that overall event, did that play a factor in the attendance there at State Farm Arena? I don't know. You know, uh, so I have to kind of like check out what the whole thing there as far as like the um, details, because you had like what is it like? Not only the thing there with Ray J and Orlando Brown, but they had like I don't even know who these chicks is. Uh, I can't even say the name. Taseki versus Big Lex, and some they had like something there with like some security guards or something like that. Yeah, Xavier versus Noah. So it was like three bouts there that you had. You had that Xavier versus Noah. You had the Ray J versus Orlando Brown, and then the Big Lex versus Taseki or whatever it is, right? So maybe that was part of it, because Zeus Network was highly involved and everything like that. But outside of that, I would kind of like see what they would say as far as like that is concerned. So maybe that could have played a factor. I'm not all too sure, but you could kind of like say that, hey, maybe having that be part of it play a factor into the overall attendance for that event. So you do have that to kind of like consider. But therefore, Claressa Shields, given that you did have them report, okay, it's a sold out arena there at State Farm in Atlanta, Georgia, and that a lot of people were able to, I guess, see it there. And then maybe you get numbers for what they had on the zone, or other outlets that maybe they want to say that could Claressa Shields potentially be a superstar in boxing. And with that being noted, that maybe they could say that, hey, are they going to have Claressa Shields be viewed as the face of boxing? uh, I don't know about all that. We have to see once again what happens with the aftermath of this event. You got to crush the numbers. Make things be how it is. But I don't know. I don't know. Just real quick, Alex here on the live chat says people are going to say Katie Taylor sold out a stadium, but it's easy to sell out a stadium in your small home country. Mm. Well, I mean, that could be something, but you have like other fighters, there in the pro ranks as far as like males that's able to sell out arenas here. Croke Park is, no small feat to sell out, especially if it's going to be for a women's boxing event. Yeah, and you do have that be another huge factor is that it is viewed as Katie Taylor's last fight. So after this, that's it. You um, but other than that, here in the states, especially with like someone like Claressa Shields, who has been in the pro game since what is that, like 2016, and having those two gold medals that she had, then being a pro, and then having those instances where she did kind of like go up these, go up the ranks and win the world titles and be part of these other events, but not necessarily be featured as like a main event up until maybe like a few more years that she was a professional. So that's kind of different. Um, I like to see how they would kind of like work this out here for Claressa Shields, because once Katie Taylor is out the picture, then who else is going to be there as far as like the front runner? Because you're going to have Katie Taylor, that's one, and then we got of course another fighter that has been in the conversation there as far as like a topic of pound for pound, that is having a fight coming up on Friday night, and she's like looking to be closer to being on her way out the door, and that's Amanda Serrano. She has one upcoming fight there. She's trying to go for the record of most knockouts for a female fighter. There. So she's trying to get her 50th professional win and her 33rd knockout. They're coming up on Friday. But outside of that, like, is that gonna be enough to like say, as far as like the pound for pound conversation, would that have her, be there around that top three or number one? I've seen something where, even if I could, I don't know if I could pull it up on the screen here, for those watching live. But if y'all check out, the website there with the box rec, they have there on the top of the page, they have a thing there for the people's pound for pound where they, kind of like vote or rank, whoever they have around the top of the pound for pound rankings. And right now, they got Gabriela Fedora at number one. They got Amanda Serrano at number two, and they got Claressa Shields at number three. That's how it is right now for the box rec people's pound for pound. I don't know who else would have like a rankings here. Maybe you have like as I mentioned way in the past, like the transnational boxing rankings board. They do have something like that that's also out there. If I look at it, they have Katie Taylor there at number one as well, and Claressa Shields at number two. So that kind of like shows that maybe some people just feel like Katie Taylor has the body of work that says that she should be number one. Uh, it's Alex here on the chat says that Amanda Serrano is fighting virtual pushover. The script is written. Well, I guess that's what you got there on that front there. So I kind of like see that as what it is. But here with Claressa Shields, we got to see like how they kind of like react to what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, and stuff like that. So I want to see how they move after this to see if they're like say, okay, we got the numbers. It's very successful. They got the attendance. People were, I guess, entertained or they liked what they saw there with Claressa Shields. So now we got to see what's next and see if we can take advantage of this and move forward to say like, hey, it really doesn't matter who she faces next, whether it's a Michaela Mayer, a Tam Tebow, or someone else. I forgot like who else was mentioned as a potential opponent for Claressa Shields. But at least you would have it to where she could fight a little bit more often and not like have breaks like she had in the past where she would fight in the boxing ring and then go over to like mixed martial arts or something like that. Now she don't really have to do that, or at least she maybe may not have to do that there on that front. So we got to see how that is here, right? So that's what I had there in reference to the main event here, real quick, and I'm going to touch on a couple of things here, but I'll do that here in a moment. I'm going to have like a quick break, and then we'll get right back into it with the Boxing Source podcast. All right, we should be back here for the Boxing Source podcast. I was talking about the main event there in State Farm Arena with Claressa Shields defeating Kaye Scott by 6 round TKO to get two of the four major titles there in the middleweight division. Okay, just moving forward, you had, of course, a few other fights there that were, promoted through Demetrius Salita of Salita Promotions. One of them was in the middleweight division there with two fighters, Troy Isley and Joseph Hicks. Of course, Troy Isley, recent signing there for Salita Promotions, had a fight earlier this year in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Was able to score a TKO victory from there. As that one was like his first bout, in about a year. Like he had been out the ring for a year, of course, being previously signed with Top Rank, and then after that, had to see if there was like something else there for him. So with that, you have now him getting back in the mix there in the middleweight division, and going up against as they say, a kind of a familiar foe there in Joseph Hicks, because these two guys competed in the amateur ranks there, and kind of like was seeing who would be part of that U.S. Olympic team sometime back, and it was Troy Isley that ended up being the fighter there that ended up being part of the Olympic team. Now you fast forward here to their August 15th, 2026. They're back in the ring, this time in the professional ranks. And this one was to where, on Joseph Hicks' side, you kind of like fight a guy that is, a middleweight contender, been a former, as they say, NABO middleweight champion. They're within the top 10 of the WBO rankings. And if you get this win, then you kind of like get in the mix there within the middleweight rankings. And for Troy Isley, it just has him, staying busy. His second fight, like I said, with Salita Promotions, and it would be his second fight within a couple of months. So, that's what we're kind of like looking at here with this bout. And for me, with Troy Isley getting a decision win here, unanimous decision win, he, like I said, he stays undefeated. They're now 17-0. But we had like I would say 7 to 8 rounds that he won. But had been had a point taken away, for a kidney punch or a punch that ended up landing in the kidneys there. But now we got to see what's going to be next here for Troy Isley, because if you're going to be out there, saying that, hey, I want to be a serious contender for a middleweight championship, you're gonna have to take that next step over, and given the situation with what's happening there with the WBO title, middleweight, and whatever, I'll get to that a little bit later, and also with the WBA title, because that WBA champion hasn't been active this year. I mean, you only had that fight that happened in December. It hasn't been back in the ring since. We know about the IBF. That just you have that fighter Aaron McKenna that just won that belt, and then who knows what's up with Carlos Adames with the WBC title. Like the interim champion there, Jesus Ramos, he already got a fight lined up against that top rated contender there in the Sultanol. So here with Troy Isley getting this win, let's see like how he's going to be able to position himself there within the middleweight division, because he has to get himself to where he can say that he could vie for the middleweight title. Now I know before that he had those two fights under Salita Promotions, he was in attendance for Carlos Adames' last fight against Austin Elmo Williams in Orlando, Florida. And after Adames scored that win over Elmo Williams, Troy Isley and Adames were chopping it up, like saying, like, hey, hey, I want to see if I could be next to get you, Adames. And he was like, hey, okay, cool. I mean, if you want to have that shot, then hey, we'll see if we can do something to make that happen. But soon after that, that's when Adames was hitting, like he was going to move up to 168. Fast forward to now, who knows what Carlos Adames is going to do, because he was supposed to get in a fight with Osles Iglesias for that IBF title at 168, and now Iglesias looks like he's signed to fight somebody else to defend that title. So now Adames is out there, I guess still looking for an opponent of sorts. So I don't know, maybe he has an outside shot to get that fight with Carlos Adames later this year. But for Troy Isley, from some folks that had seen his fight or whatever it is, it said like he still has like a similar style of just trying to score 1-2 and things like that, and still has to work a little bit in order to put punches together to really put his opponent in some trouble. But outside of that, he's still able to be undefeated. Like for me, I thought his most impressive performance was against Marcos Hernandez back in 2024, when he ended up scoring a TKO victory and stopping him. Like he dominated that particular fight. But ever since then, it's been a bunch of decision victories there up until what happened to Grand Rapids a couple of months ago. All right, so we got to see here what's going to be next up for Troy Isley in the middleweight division, because, like I said, if he wants to have his name entered as a potential world title challenger, either he could get something in the mix or try to work something out with Carlos Adames, or have another one of these fights in the middleweight division that kind of like say, hey, you know what, I should be out there to say that I'm a serious contender, for a world championship. I mean, as I mentioned with Jesus Ramos, having a fight coming up against Miriam Sultanov. That's on one side. You also have, Vito Nicky Jr. Going up against Ammo Williams, who I mentioned earlier. That's going to be on September 4th. So that just shows you what's going on, at least right now, in the middleweight division. And I know that Yoeli Hernandez is supposed to be, in a bout that's coming up. I think, what was that, for next week or something like that there with Yoeli Hernandez, right? But, it almost seems like none of these top contenders want to get in the mix there against Yoeli Hernandez, because hey, I don't know about y'all, but when I see the opponent that they had there for Yoeli Hernandez, I'm like, man, you call? I'm just being real with y'all. That's like one of them stay busy fights. You feel me? Yeah, one of them stay busy fights, because I would, I'm like, yo, he is kind of like highly favored. I would say he's highly favored there against Francisco Varone. Yes, and that is on Saturday. They're part of that card in Las Vegas. So that just shows you there what the middleweight division is right now. I mean, no unifications. Shout out to one fighter that held the world title there at middleweight, causing all that. And doesn't look like there's much to try to unify the middleweight division here anytime soon. So that's what we got here. That's going on right now when it comes to the 160-pound division. Alex here says, "Hey Troy, he doesn't favor Troy Isley over Aaron McKenna right now." Yikes! Yikes! That's kind of like a man. And remember, like Aaron McKenna, like just scored the win there for that IBF belt. You know, that's man, dang, like you ain't giving Troy Hasley much there on that. And I think the thing is, like, that McKenna win, that was a couple of weeks ago, pretty much, or last week actually, over in Dublin, for him to win that middleweight title, IBF title. So, man, that that that's like I said, for some they say that Troy might have to work a little bit, but we had to see how that goes. So that's what we're looking at. And shout out to Becky there on the live chat there with the attendance numbers there for the Claressa Shields events. The last couple of events they had, like State Farm Arena and that what is that, Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. So she's kind of like pulling in the the figures there as far as like attendees and stuff like that. So we got to see if that's going to continue here later on for her in her professional career, and maybe we see her maybe one more time before the end of this year. But again, it just depends on who the opponent's going to be. And a couple of opponents that I did mention are with most valuable promotions, who has Jake Paul, that is a, I guess, what I would say, a detractor of sorts to Claressa Shields. But we'll see. You know, shout out to making reference to Troy Isley. He says that Isley has problems with the reach. He doesn't have the power to keep people off him. Yeah, yeah. Hey, that's the thing, man. It's with his status, so to speak, it's gonna be something to see, like how he'll be able to deal with the fighter that either is like has a longer reach or something like that. Because he's there, with a reach under 70, and you have to see like how he would fare against someone like. Uh, I couldn't even mention like Yoeli Hernandez. What how about Jesus Ramos? Jesus Ramos is there with a reach of 72. So how would Troy Isley be able to adapt and move around and kind of like get around that reach of Jesus Ramos? One, and then two, with Ramos, he was there at 154. He's competing now at 160. But if y'all look at him, like, it almost looked like he ain't even gonna be at 160 that long. Just being honest with you, he just got that. We got the build where he could be, higher than higher than 160. All right. Let me see here. I'm gonna try to share the link here because it got folks that should be trying to get in the building, man. But we'll see here if we could do that here for the time being. So let me get that set up here and see if we can have guests to join in, because I was checking to see if we'll be able to have our panelists here to join in on the conversation, but it's looking like having some issues there with that. But I did kind of like share the link right there, and I'm going to see here if I could run it again for my panelists to join in, because it should have been able to work before, but I guess it hadn't there up to this point. So we'll see how that kind of like goes there on that front. But yeah, you did have that fight with Troy Isley against Hicks there. You also had a team Overton versus Rober Alexis Edgulo. That name should be familiar to a few people because Alexis Edgulo had been an opponent for David Benavidez back in 2020, and also with Edgar Berlanga back in 2022. So for this one, it was like for a team Overton to fight a guy that has had a good amount of bouts in his record. There up to that point, it was 33 bouts with a record of 29-4 for Robert Alexis Angulo, and for Teef Overton, he was going in there with a record of 16-0, and he had been coming off of a win there around that Atlanta area against Carlos Gagora, who was like what is it, IBO champion at one point in the super middleweight division. But now, with a team Overton, they're kind of like one of those rising contenders there within the light heavyweight division that he wanted to see like how much he could build his record up and go up in the rankings there within that division, because I have to check to see you got a team Overton that is number 5, ranked number 5 in the WBA rankings at like heavyweight there. So that's something there to kind of like look at. Maybe he could get in the mix with the number of the other contenders that are out there. So maybe that could work out. So with Overton, I wanted to see like if he was going to be able to have like a dominant performance against Robert Alexis Angulo. It was to a certain extent. It's saying there with the clean sweep, unanimous decision victory over Edgulo. And now it's just trying to see what would be next for him. He's already had 3 fights this year. That's pretty active there within the light heavyweight division. I've always been a fan of fighters that could have more than 2 fights within the year, especially if you're at a particular point of your career where you're seeing like you're a rising contender of sorts. So we had to see how that goes. Therefore, Atif Overton. Now, I will say this: Overton is, as I mentioned, they're within the light heavyweight rankings at number 5 in the WBA. There is a fighter that is right above him at number 4 that was part of what I say is the fight of the year so far. Okay. And this fighter has another fight coming up here that'll be part of Pro Box. That should be there at the end of this month over in the Los Angeles area against Juan Carrillo. And that is Najee Lopez, who is also undefeated. I don't know how they could get this thing going, but we'll see how that goes. Hold on just a moment. So we'll see if we could get this thing going. Should be able to have like a one guest here that should be able to try to join in, see how that's going to work out. But it didn't look like that was sorted there. So we'll still working on if we can have our panelists joining on. But outside of that, as I was mentioning there with the Team Overton, a fight between him and Najee Lopez would be really, really, really good. I don't know if they will make that to kind of like be an eliminator of sorts, or if the WBA will order that. I don't know, but that would be something I think that fight fans would love to see if you could have something like that. So maybe that would kind of like be a plan of sorts there. But we'll see. Oh, okay. So I was trying to see if I could get some of the panelists here to join in. Let me see here. Because they, I thought I was able to see someone, one of my guys, be able to join, but it didn't kind of like go through all the way. So I have to see if I could try something else here to, kind of like get it working, to get it going, so we can have our panelists be able to join in. Outside of that, might have to find another way to get them to join in, because I know that they would have some comments about what happened there this weekend, especially over in the State Farm Arena. So we do want to see if we could get their take on that. But yeah, that's the thing here. Okay, got it. All right, yeah. So let's see here. Hold on. Who we got? Who we got? Yo.
This boxing academic. I'm driving, man. I couldn't type in my whole name.
Oh, word. I feel you. What's good? What's good, academic?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just heading home, driving. Wanted to get.
Oh, it looks like you were like off and on there. Like you said, you're on the move or something like that. So I wasn't sure if you're able to, kind of like fully hear me, because right now not able to hear you. Yeah. It's just he's been cutting in and out there. So let me see here. Maybe you could try something else here on this front. So yeah. So we'll see if we can sort it out to get our guests to join in and talk and chop it up. So we'll see how that goes on that. But let's see. Let's see how this will look. Okay. Well, I wanted to get back into that conversation there. Like I said, with Overton, he's been one of those fighters there. Coming out of Philadelphia, looking pretty impressive. Coming up the ranks there at 175. It's just what's going to be next out there for him in the light heavyweight division. They're being under Selena Promotions currently, so we got to see like how they're going to move him here within the ranks at 175. All right, let me see here if we get my guy Backsack Academic back with us. You able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Yes, sir. What you talking about?
So I went through the still going through the fight card there in Atlanta, Georgia. I know you were kind of like based in that area, sorts or whatnot, but wasn't able to make it into to those fights. But what did you get from the vibe that was coming out of that event there with Claressa Shields getting the win over Kaye Scott?
I mean, it looked kind of electric. It looked like definitely people want to support her, and that's a good thing. Like it looked like an electric environment. It looked like she had all the support in the world. The fight's a different story, but and I personally I had to watch the fight after the fact. I didn't watch it live, but yeah, I mean, it looked like a spectacular environment. It looked like an electric environment. Would you agree?
Yeah, they. I mean, for me, I felt like they pushed it to where you would have a number of the the who's that would be in attendance and make it. At least a few days before the fight, it was like mentioned by Floyd Mayweather that he was going to be in attendance for it. And then of course you had Shakur Stevenson be there, but he's usually there in support of Claressa Shields and her fights. But then also having Terrence Crawford there being attendance that kind of like made things be more interesting for fight fans to kind of like go through and show up and stuff like that. So maybe you had that as one thing, but for it to be in the State Farm Arena with the attendance that they had, they reported that it was around like 17,000 or so. So I have to get the actual numbers for it, but that should kind of like say like, hey, she like Claressa Shields could be getting some traction, getting momentum to be like, okay, she can have more fights, in these arenas, and regardless of who the opponent is going to be, then people will show up to see her. So that's the thing that I'm looking at from this point forward is regardless of who her opponent is going to be, the fans will be there and show up and show support.
Yeah, by all means, and I think Papoose probably has a good, maybe not a good bit, but he has something to do with it because a number of like women and or casual fans, mess with Clarissa, which I'm glad is that way, right? But yeah, like I guess with her dating him, and then the controversy around her dating him and stuff. Neither here nor there, but it has brought eyes. It brought like casual eyes and women who want to support her, for what she represents.
Yeah. So, I like to see like how that's going to, reflect here in this thing for her from this point forward. I know that, she's been talking about, different topics, outside of the ring or, fighters that either are not in her division or just not in women's boxing. But, for the time being, as long as she has like some of these fights that could be lined up for her in the future, and if the build up is done right and the venue or the location could work out for her, then we'll see. I know that one particular fan of Claressa Shields did mention maybe having her fight in New York City or maybe in Brooklyn. That could be a potential location for a next fight. Um, and she could fight like a Michaela Mayer possibly, or Tam Tebow, who, as I mentioned, won last weekend. But it just, I don't know if it will depend on the opponent. But if Claressa Shields' name is big enough, it wouldn't really matter who the opponent is; they'll be able to show up.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And I got Joe says they confirmed the attendance numbers there in Atlanta, through the main announcer there, Thomas Fiber. So it was over like 17,000 that was there for that fight or that event card there, so to speak, right? So
That's pretty good though, right?
yeah, yeah. So what do you think about like Claressa Shields standing as far as like either like pound for pound right now or something like that? Like would she, be over Katie Taylor at this point, or I don't know, maybe over Gabriela Fandora, who I mentioned earlier? or is it to where she has to do, I guess, something else to kind of like be at number one?
Well, I think if we look at it with two different lenses, we get two different answers. So, by no stretch of the imagination, she is 100% the GOAT. By no stretch of the imagination. Like, hands down, she is the GOAT. She's the greatest woman of all time. Probably won't be many women who could compete and or have the amount of success that she has had. Or the talent. A lot of things. But if we look at it off of importance and other people fighting,
Oh, what was that? Oh, hold up, wasn't able to like hear that part. I don't know if you're at a bad location. Yeah, I think he was it was cutting off right there. So have to see if he'll be able to get back on or join back on. Um, so let's see. Yeah, just I got to bring him back up. All right, should be back here with us. All right, you hear me?
yeah,
Academic.
yeah.
All right.
Dang, how much you miss of what I said?
Uh,
What's the last?
you were talking about like Claressa Shields standing as far as like overall, um, as far as like stature is in reference to like history and kind of like our previous conversations when we bring up this topic with Claressa Shields is that you know is it to like the same, is she viewed as the same as maybe like men's counterparts, or something where it's a different era in women's boxing, you know so maybe you could bring it up on that
Yeah,
front.
I'll try to repeat what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to repeat what I said because I don't think maybe you heard me because my phone had went had slept. But essentially, I say if we look at it from two different perspectives, we get two different answers on who's the pound for pound. So by no stretch of the imagination, no one else talent wise can equate to Claressa Shields. She is by far the GOAT. By all means, she's the GOAT. There probably will not be a woman who can do what she did and how she did with the talent, with all of the intangibles that she has. But if you look at it from another division where people are fighting more fighters of import, fighting fighters that have certain standings who fought other like good fighters or great fighters, women fighters, um, you might get a different answer. But for me, I say Claressa, just because she's head over heels above everybody. At the same time, I think that if we like you didn't ask me to talk about the fight, but it always gets back to the issue of the fighters that she fight aren't on her level. So how much credit can you give her? You give her all the credit in the world, but there's always a but because there has not been a fighter that could really compete with her, which is quite unfortunate. And so, when people compare her to, what she did, but when you compare it to the men's division, it's just too much talent. It's too much evenly spread talent to where when you compare, it's apples and oranges. It's very much like the NBA and the WNBA. Same game, but a different game. Claressa deserves all the credit she get, but she need a nemesis.
Yeah, nemesis or like a couple of them, because yeah, I you could bring this up as far as like when we were talking about the pound for pound earlier, in that a number of fighters that are mentioned like Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, and right now like Gabriela Fedora, but the first two in particular, those two fighters like have much more competition that they could face, within their division or a division above or a division below. Maybe like a Michaela Mayer, same thing. Like she competed like 140, 147, as high like 154, at least currently. She's gonna be fighting at 154. Um, and that there are a lot more fighters that are around that weight class that they could compete against in comparison to a Claressa Shields who's there at like 168 or 175. She has been there at 154 and 160, but like these last few years she's been there at 168 and heavyweight up to their standards. And we've talked about that as far as like how many competitors are there in the heavyweight division in women's boxing right now. There isn't that many at all. So if she competes there at heavyweight, then who are going to be the opponents that will be there available at heavyweight for her? Not that many. And it could be the same for maybe a division below. But at least for the time being, what she's able to accomplish right now, no one's been able to duplicate that, and we might not see anyone be able to duplicate that. So, with that being said, as of right now, she could have that title as the greatest woman of all time in that front. But is that something to where she could be? I don't know, compared to some of the other fighters in the men's division like that. Who knows?
No.
Okay. So then, how would you compare her in sports to Serena Williams?
So tennis is interesting because the talent in tennis is at least more prevalent. So if you so by all means, men's tennis product is a much faster. It's a much like it's a tougher game. It's the speed. It's the precision. It's a lot of things that make men and women different. However, the top level in tennis, there are a number of people who are the top level in tennis who, when Serena was the best, people at least gave her a run for her money. They might not have won, but at least was good matches. They might have pushed her to pushed her to 5 sets and stuff. Like in boxing with Claressa, it's nobody to push her to 5 sets. It's like it's just different. At least with tennis, there are world class women tennis people who have the opportunity to win on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have won, but that's not the case in women's boxing.
Word, word. We got my guy Cap Quest in the chat here saying that, hey, you're only as great as your competition, and unfortunately, Caressa has none. Says that she'll have to have that baby that she's been talking about come back and do it again, and maybe she'll get the proper respect. Hey, we'll see. Like I said, the number of the fighters that are mentioned now among the top of the rankings in these divisions, they might not have that many fights on their professional record right now. So yeah, if she waits a little bit and then is off for I don't know a year and a half, and then comes back and then does something at that point, maybe that could get things going as far as like more people respecting her or something like that. But as of right now, like I was saying, uh it's like they would have to do a little bit more work out there because hey, I'm like looking at this right now as far as like rankings is concerned, like for women's rankings for one of these media outlets or media I would say groups, they only rank up to 5 fighters per division, 5 or 6. outside of that, they really don't they really don't mention much because as we've been mentioning, the competition or the amount of fighters that enter the rankings, I mean, that they're just not available. So you can only go as far as like maybe five, maybe six, for a lot of these divisions in women's boxing. So for Claressa Shields, if you'll have like for example, if you're competing in the heavyweight division, like how many fighters are there in the heavyweight division? Like maybe 10, 15. So that's what kind of like got to deal with. But in this sense, if you kind of like compare her to maybe a Serena Williams, or if there was like a player there in women's basketball, that you know fans could compare Clarissa Shields with, is that kind of like different. Who knows? But it's just the timing right now with Shields is that she's able to accomplish what she's done. Is just that how many fighters are available for her to face, and how many of those fighters are able to fight each other to kind of like say, hey, you know what? They've proven themselves to be a viable opponent for Clarissa Shields later on down the line, or instead of having fighters be mentioned as an opponent with just 7 or 8 professional fights on the record. Kaye Scott, just had 7 fights, pro fights. You know, who they have as the other unified champion, Ted Tebow, just won those titles, and she has around the same amount of pro fights. So I don't know if that's gonna kind of like work out. Let me see here. We should be able to get more people in the mix. All right, we should have another guest here to join us on Boxing Sports Podcast here. See if they're able to get everything going here and join in on the conversation. So we're gonna see if our other special guest, the chef, is able to join us here later on. But
Jr.
yo,
Could while we when Terrell come in, could you look up what was the punch count at the end of the fight
let me
for this fight?
let
Whenever
me
Terrell does come in, could you look that up?
Yeah, let me see if I can get the punch stats there for this particular fight. If they have it here for the CompuBox, yeah, I'll be able to have that there, ready to go. Just seeing here if Brother Terrell is able to join us here. See if they got the audio thing working or not. But I'll see if I can pull it up here real quick, and they got this thing. All right, see if Brother Terrell here. You're on with me.
Yo.
Yo, what's up?
That's a struggle, dude. It's a struggle.
Man, I don't know what's up with this thing sometimes. I really don't. Oh man, thankful for you to join in on this conversation on the Boxing Source podcast here. We're talking about the Claressa Shields versus Kaye Scott, and Claressa Shields as far as like her standing as the greatest woman of all time as far as like women's boxing. But I guess here currently, what does that mean overall is the question.
I mean, let me say this. I mean, let me say, as a friend of mine, right? He always says, "I've always been a hater of Clarissa Shields," right? And but that's quite the contrary. I do love her as a boxer for all her medals, the Olympic medals, the accomplishments and stuff like that, right? Love all that, right? But for me personally, it's her delivery style on how she promotes herself. And you guys know I've always been not been a fan of that, just the loud talk, things like that. I don't need to go into detail. You guys know that,
Yeah,
but it's a way to promote yourself and make yourself known. But at the same time, in a sport like boxing, I do get it. You do have to make noise. In this case, keep in mind, this is a dominantly men's sport, right? Uh, but even now, with the help of the internet, they're able to propel themselves into the spotlight, making videos on social media. Even like Mike Boxing Academy mentioned, her hooking up with what's the dude's name, Papoose. That does have influence on on her views like that. That does right, all positive. Uh, but her, the boxer, I've always been a fan. always been better. Like I said, once again, for me, it's just how you deliver the message. So that's not my brand, but nevertheless, we are right here. So going up to the event, and not necessarily the fight, just the event, you see her making appearance with Money Mayweather, uh, Bud, Shakur, and just all the names, and I absolutely love that, right? And on top of that, I jumped on Twitter this morning. I saw your boy Matt, uh, boxing brunch. He made a tweet just basically saying Claressa is a draw, right? And you look a little further into that, right? She's of course she's from Michigan, Flint, of course, things like that. She's built herself up to have her own fights in Detroit, and like Mike said, women come out to support her, right? And we're not here years later, and we're right here at this fight last night, and you take notice of that a big fight in Atlanta, a black town for the most, like that, right? And once again, I love to see that. I was at a venue last night, right, and the place pretty much packed up, and everyone said they're there to see the fight, and that wasn't always the case with Clarissa, right? She didn't always have as many eyeballs on her like that. But now here we are now, and she does have that. And what I love seeing the big box fans come out to support her. That's so great to see, right? And even like you said, JR, even though MVP's definitely doing their thing in women boxing, giving people high paydays, that's never been seen before in women's boxing. Great. And kind of now, Carissa kind of insists being on the other side of the street, but she's still getting it done. She's still drawing, and I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
right? But just even aside that, who she fight next? I don't know. At this point now, Sleeve's going. Will always need to be very creative in finding her next opponent, right? I think the Michaela Mayer fight would definitely be a great fight, but at the same time, Mayer's highest weight is what 147. So it's kind of been much to ask her to go up, or even ask Chris to come back down even further. That's tough. That's a tough ask right there.
Well, well, that's the
But
thing that's going to be happening here pretty soon because in a couple of weeks you're going to have Michaela Mayer competing at 154. Um, and she'll be competing there at 154 against Chantel Cameron, and that will be for like unified titles there at 154. So, I'd have to see how Mayer performs there at that weight class first, because she's been there up and down as far as like welterweight, super welterweight. She did actually win the unified titles there at super welterweight back in October. So she's kind of like fought at what is that super featherweight, gone up to lightweight, then the welterweight, now competing at super welterweight. So after this, if she's gonna move up and then eventually fight in the middleweight division, she probably could do that. She's like up there around 36 years old right at this point. So hey, maybe she could just go ahead and pack all the pounds, as they say, in order to have a potential bout with Claressa Shields later on down the line. Uh, as far as like those punch stats that academic was requested, overall you had Claressa Shields with 314 punches thrown in comparison to Kaye Scott, and Shields landed 92 total punches compared to Scott's 60 over the course of the 6 rounds or so that the fight went through. So those were the punch stats for the
So
fight.
so Scott landed six.
Oh, you were cut.
Did you hear me, Jr.?
You were cut off and on there. So
I said
again.
I said Scott landed 60 punches on Clarissa.
Yep, landed
Okay,
60.
I gotta go back and look at that again. 60 punches.
Yep, that's what they
And
claim.
how many did she throw?
170.
and she's 42 years old.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 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 yeah. what you just mentioned there, Terrell. They're at 42, 43 years old. Yeah, so you know, I mean that's another thing as far as like what's out there, in these weight classes. You got, Claressa that's there, right now at 31 years old currently. The next highest rated fighter they have, who is the now new unified champion there, Ted Tebow, is there at 29 years old. So they're around the same, age range. But other than that, you have like fighters that are, 42, 43 years old, or 38 or 39 or something like that. So they're kind of like up there in age of sorts as far as like their age, as far as experience goes. That's a completely different story. So, that's the thing you got to deal with in women's boxing. So,
Let me ask you guys a couple of questions real quick.
all right,
Is Roy Jones Jr. a great fighter?
and they're saying he might be considered among the greatest of the modern era.
Okay, so with that said, that's well established. We know that from his fight record, style, flair, and productivity and bringing production to words of boxing. But we know that some critics will say that he didn't have a necessarily a great resume, and more particularly, he didn't have great people in his era, right, to help define his greatness, right? And the same thing can be said for Clarissa, right? Great fighter, great skills, all that. Even now, brings eyes to the sport of boxing and herself, great, and that's paying off at the gate, things like that. But once again, same thing, does have great opponents in her era, right, to help define that greatness. So, Mike, what do you think about that?
Um, well, I'm not gonna speak on Roy Jones, but I mean Clarissa, like she fought a 42-year-old who had 7 fights that had unified 2 belts, and this allows her to be a middleweight unified champion by fighting this lady with 7 fights, a 42-year-old lady. And to me, I don't, to me, it looked pretty one-sided. The fight looked one-sided. It didn't look like the girl was throwing as much, and it didn't look like she landed that much either. I'm flabbergasted that it's saying that she landed 60 punches.
Yep.
I'll go back and look at it again. However, to me, I just, I just, think that yeah, this doesn't help Clarissa in my eyes. Maybe it helps her with the casual fans. However, she gets 2 more belts. She becomes a middleweight unified champion. But you fought a 42-year-old who had 7 fights, and she in ring she was not that skillful.
Yeah, that's crystal clear. For me, once again, the GOAT conversation with her, I'm kind of mum on that. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to talk about that right now, especially when you're in the midst of your career, right? I don't need to identify you as the GOAT of women's boxing right now. And some part for the research you just spoke on, Mike. For one, women's boxing is not deep. It's not deep. It's not deep. Like that you guys said in our chat, right? The comment said, "Well, there's only what 52 fighters in that weight class," which that's not a lot at all. But once again, this is women's boxing, right? So it's not gonna be nowhere near men's boxing, right? Uh, but that says a lot, though. I mean, but at the same time, I'm trying to make the comparison with Roy Jones Jr. because he didn't have a lot of great fighters in this era to challenge him and help define that greatness. And that's why I compared the same thing with her.
Well, with Roy Jones, he at one point had a fight like a James Tony. And in that particular point, that showed like his talent level and how he was, much more than a lot of the opponents that he stepped in the ring against. So for me, that was like James Tony. But I think at that point, that Roy Jones James Toney fight is equivalent to when Floyd Mayweather fought Diego Corrales, because those two fighters were had around the same amount of fights. They pretty much like proved themselves undefeated, kind of like were around the best or at the best in that particular weight class. And so they went up against each other, and it just showed that Floyd was in a whole different class than Diego Corrales. At that time for Roy Jones, he just was, in a different class than James Toney. But later on in his career, when he was, getting all those belts in super middleweight, and then eventually moving up to heavyweight, the face what John Ruiz for that WBA heavyweight title. He didn't have that, defining fight of sorts to kind of like say, okay, this kind of shows him to be around the top or at the top there in the game. But even though some may have viewed him as pound for pound number one at times, he didn't get that fight like I was saying against Evander Holyfield at heavyweight or against Mike Tyson at heavyweight. To kind of like say, hey, if he beats one of these guys, then you can unequivocally say that he is the best fighter that we've seen in this era. That he would have had, been in that conversation of greatest of all time. But here in women's boxing, you don't have that many competitors out there. So if you're the best of that group, then yes, you could say you're the greatest of that era. But with that, not that much competition out there or that have been there within women's boxing over the past like 20, 25 years plus, then it kind of like, as some might say, put an asterisk to it. But you can't, you can only face who's available to you, at the time. So that's how that goes.
Okay, another second question too.
All right.
Does Michaela Mayer need to fight Claressa Shields?
For me, no, I don't think so. Um, but that's because for me, Mayer has already like she's already been through a career, so to speak. I've said like she's gone up a lot of divisions. She competed at the super featherweight division, so she'll be going from super featherweight, back in 2020 up to now where she's currently competing at super welterweight and then potentially fighting at middleweight if she fights Claressa Shields. So, but at least for me on my side, I'm not really like in the demand for it. But her being a potential opponent, like I mentioned, Tam Tebow being a potential opponent. If you compare the two, Michaela Mayer has, of course, much more experience than Tam Tebow does. But it's just that, like, is it something to where they say, hey, man, I really want to see that fight? I don't know if that's available or that's something that people are talking about as of yet. So I have to wait and see.
Yeah, because like I said, at this point now, we know Salisu has to be very resourceful and creating opponents for Clarissa. Obviously, Michaela Merritt is someone that's out there that's a name, a following, and definitely the type of opponent that Merritt will be nothing like the girl last night, right? Someone with 7 fights, little to no international experience, no exposure, and that exposure does matter, as we see with the Janbeck decision. I'm sure you'll talk about that too, which is crazy. But exposure does
Oh
matter.
yeah, I'm gonna talk about that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But so I said, so I see why they would want to fight Mayer. I see that, but I said Mayer doesn't need Clarissa. Look back down at what I think 130, Alicia Baumgartner, right? Uh, she had claimed she wanted to fight Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor didn't need her, right? And now what's funny for her, Carolyn Dubois wants to fight Alicia Baumgartner, but Baumgartner's like, well, I don't need you. I'm doing my thing. I don't necessarily need you. So it's kind of in a sense, like I said, I posed a question. Mayor does not need Carissa. She's making her money. She's got her own following. She's established already with her promotional company. She doesn't need her. So who does Carissa fight next? Who knows? And I'm sure Celia will be continue to be productive in manufacturing an opponent. But at the same time, I'm not saying Clarissa is good now, but she has promotions behind her and has a good following behind her, as we saw evidence from last night. So good look.
Yeah. I just would say that if they feel like this particular event in Atlanta was successful enough to say that Claressa could be a headliner in different parts of the U.S. and still garner the same amount of success, then by all means go for it. If it doesn't have to be Michaela Mayer, then it doesn't have to be Michaela Mayer. She could, see if about fighting for the undisputed middleweight championships once again. They, lock out something with Tam Tebow, but with Tebow being under MVP right now, are they going to go ahead and make that fight happen? I mean, they were looking to have Claressa Shields fight Shadaza Green. They're super middleweight, but Shadaza Green, had that injury during her last fight, so that potential matchup hasn't been able to come to fruition as of yet. And I think that's kind of part of the thing that we've been saying in the past multiple times is that a lot of the fighters that could be potential opponents for Claressa Shields didn't necessarily get to that point where it's like, yeah, now we can see if Claressa Shields has a serious opponent in front of her, because they get up to a certain level and then it just doesn't work out to where they could move forward and make that matchup happen. So we got to see here what's going to be next up for Shields in later on down the line here, maybe later this year or sometime next year, to see if she does get those opponents that I guess more fight fans will be looking for, to say, hey, all right, now she could show how great she really is. Okay, so we got that. Now moving forward, there, brother Terrell like brought up this conversation. We have in the, what is this, the light heavyweight division or whatnot, or 160, 168. We do have a world champion there at 168 with the WBO by the name of Hamza Sheeraz. He did win the vacant WBO title there at 168 and has had the defense of that world title at 168 already. But now the WBO has brought up that he could be ordered or is likely ordered to face a mandatory challenger. They are saying that the mandatory is due for the WBO Super Middleweight Championship. And who does the WBO, that is the World Boxing Organization, who do they mention as the mandatory challenger to Hamza Sheeraz Super Middleweight Championship? It is Janbeck Hanala, the same Janbeck that held the WBO middleweight championship, but was stripped of that WBO middleweight championship because he tested positive for an illegal substance. And because of that, we couldn't get a unified championship bout in the middleweight division last year between Janbeck and Erislandy Lara. Okay. So since then, that was December, Janbeck has not been in the ring. There was a ruling by the WBO in reference to Janbeck's status as the WBO middleweight champion, and they essentially made him quote unquote champion in recess. Not fully outright stripping him, but kind of like putting him as champion in recess or champion emeritus or whatever it is. In that once they had another guy as a champion, that whenever Janbeck would come back in the ring, his first bout could be against that guy. And right now, Denzel Bentley is a WBO middleweight champion. The Denzel Bentley that Janbeck has already beat. So now they're saying, okay, Janbeck, is he making 160? Yeah, I don't think so. Let's put him up there at 168. They rank him at number 2 at 168, and in essence, they have him be the mandatory challenger for that championship that Hamza Sheeraz has. And I'm like, so y'all don't punish this dude for testing positive for an illegal substance, and you give him the opportunity to fight for a world championship at 168. I don't know if it's that much different than Ryan Garcia, but that's like a whole different story right there. Uh, Makey says the substance is legal in Kazakhstan hospitals, though. Well, here's the thing: if you're competing in Kazakhstan, if you're having a fight in Kazakhstan, then yeah, you could have that be legal in Kazakhstan. But if you're fighting in the US and it's legal in the US, and if you're training or fighting in the US, then yeah, that's not going to work out. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know like how they would kind of like get around that, but they're just saying here that they're giving Janbeck basically an excuse to continuously compete, and I ain't necessarily for that. The WBO basically excused them with the middleweight title, and now they're giving them an opportunity to fight for the super middleweight title against House Rise. That's nasty work. Terrell, you got something on that here?
Yeah, I saw your tweet earlier today. That's what brought this definitely to my attention. Just to jump on boxing.com and saw a little more detail about that. And like I said, that's like you just said, that is crazy work for a guy that's never fought at that class, right?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
I don't know how you do this. You never fought the
Well,
class. You never even have prospects of fighting that class. And honestly, if he would never pop positive for PEDs, he probably still would have been at 160 to try to take that over, right? But
yeah,
now he gets suspended. He's out of the talk boxing talk right there, and rightfully so, for PEDs like that, right? And also you're close to coming back. You're not even all the way back yet,
mm,
right? And all of a sudden, boom, they drop this on everybody, and then try to justify it, saying, "Oh, he's basically saying he's been with us for a while, a good champion that's represented us for a good long time, right? He's been good to us. We've been good to him. It's been good back and forth. He has a name, and we have a relationship with him, and basically fuck the other guy.
yep,
He ain't nobody. That's pretty much what you're saying. Fuck you, right? And put Janbeck in this position, which is incredulous. And uh, even I tell you, look back recently, right?
yep,
Keyshawn Davis
yep.
all of a sudden got up to a mandatory position for Haney, right? How'd
Rainy.
that happen? How'd
Yep,
that happen? It's the
yep,
same old fuckery that goes on in boxing. It was doesn't
yeah,
make sense because even with Keyshawn, never fought at 147. And didn't really have any prospects of fighting at 147. But yet, once again, he has his name, uh, he has following, and we know that in this day and age, that equates to dollars. We know that it's a direct correlation. Look at Jake Paul. Say less, right?
right,
Views equates to dollars these days, and it is now a popularity contest in a sense. So this is just our latest story in that line, and
hmm
it's ridiculous. I mean, he doesn't want it, and I'm gonna say this too. I'm not being petty. Hope that this fight does happen, and I hope that Janbeck does beat Sheeraz. And the reason why I say that, we know that Sheeraz should have lost against Adamus. What was that, a year and a half ago over on a Saudi card.
yes.
So I hope that MF get what he got coming to
Oh man,
him. I'm being
come
petty,
on,
definitely,
man.
definitely.
Hey, listen, man. You know me. I'm not much of a fan of Janabek at all. So if they do have this fight, I know, I'm as they say, a broadcast journalist or whatever it is. But yes, this will be put on record. Sheeraz should send Jenna Beck straight to hell. Oh man. Oh man. All right. I'm gonna see here if I could get someone to call in, because they do have some news that they wanted to share here that should be breaking. I don't know if some have been checking the social media outlets or whatever it is, but I'm gonna see if they're able to call in here right now. Let me get them on here through speaker. All right, you on here with us?
Yeah, I can hear you loudly and clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes. All right. What's going on? It should be Brother Joseph here of War Week Boxing. So seems like you have some news here in the boxing world that you would like to share.
Okay, two big items up for bid for The Price is Right? Two big news items. I'm gonna lay the smack on your show, brother. You get the exclusive. These are both according to Robert Garcia, head trainer. Right? First one I'm gonna give you. Bam Rodriguez just signed a 2-fight deal with Turkey Al Sheikh, a lot like Ryan Garcia did. And so he's going to be competing on the undercard in the co-main event of Canelo versus Mbili on October 31st. And then his second fight on this contract will be against Noel Inoue in Japan in March of 2027. It's on, guys. If Bam just steers the course and doesn't take on a big puncher in that division. Because remember, he's competing at 118. He might actually be trying to test the waters at 122. They don't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay? But unless he takes on a big puncher, and I don't think Robert would be that foolish, right? He's not as foolish as... Who's Anthony Joshua's trainer?
Oh, man, I have no idea at this point.
Remember, who was telling you guys that was a terrible idea?
Yep. You did say that.
Yeah, so if Bam just steers the course, and Robert Garcia is no dummy, he's a former fighter, a former champion. He's going to say, you know what? We've got the biggest money fight in our career, and it's going to make us a big star if we whoop that ass in front of 55,000 fans in Japan. Then we're just going to take on a boxer, a guy who's not going to be able to crack us, a guy who's not going to test our chin, but he's going to give us a good fight. He's going to sharpen that iron, right?
Yeah.
That's who we want. And then immediately, we're going to start preparing for Noel Inoue, the fight of next year in March of 2027. That's the first news. Second one is even better, I think. But not for fans who wanted to see Virgil versus Duran Butsenis. From what I'm being told by Robert Garcia, head trainer, Virgil Ortiz is moving up to 160, taking on Jermell Charlo at 160 in November in Dallas-Fort Worth, probably the American Airlines Center.
Ooh. That is big. That is big right there. That is something that, they were seeing if they could secure, at one point when it comes to Virgil Ortiz, that he hasn't had a fight since his bout in Fort Worth or whatever it was against Erickson Lubin. So, they wanted to see about...
It's in this business change. You're either playing checkers or you're playing chess. Now, Duran Butsenis and Eddie Hearn, they're like, well, we're just going to get him another title, give him more leverage in negotiations. Think about this, though. What is that going to do? Just picking up another trinket against the most, I guess, lightly regarded champ at 154. Instead, you're taking on a guy who is the former undisputed champ at 54, and his only losses to Canelo Alvarez in a decision. And if Virgil wipes up the floor with old man Little Charlo, you don't think that's going to bring bigger demand, greater demand from the fans if he puts on a superstar-making performance over Jermell? Once again, that's easier said than done, even with this big layoff.
Yep.
But it's Oscar De La Hoya, Eric Gomez maneuvering him into his position, just like they're doing with Ryan Garcia. Right? It's like you're either playing chess in this business or you're playing checkers. Now, once again, I heard all of this stuff about Keyshawn. I'm sorry, guys. You cannot fault your promoter at this point. They and DAZN bid $8.5 million for that matchup.
Yep.
And Keyshawn turns down, what, 2.5?
Around 2.5, 2.41 mil.
Oh my gosh! And from what I'm hearing, he felt he deserved 5.
That was reported by, if I'm not mistaken, was it Pugmire that reported it, or one of them reported it that it was in upwards of 5 million.
Oh my word, dude!
So
that is disgraceful. Now, once again, we talk about this all the time on the show, but once again, if you pay out inflated purses, it never ends well for the health of the sport. When you pay guys like Devin Haney, when you pay guys like Shakur Stevenson, when you pay guys like Conor Benn that much money, how much do you think badasses like Keyshawn believes that he's EOs or he should?
Where you should be valued at.
The market. That's the problem, guys.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we talk about this all the time. Now, once again, have you talked about Oshaki and Navarrete?
Not yet. But I wanted to revisit the thing there with Bam Rodriguez first. So you're gonna have him, in action. Should be playing for October 31st. I guess that will be that rescheduled date for Mexico versus the world. They're headlined by Canelo versus Billy. So he'll be featured on that there, and then he gets through that bout. Then he has a super fight up in front of him against Naoya Inoue in March of 2027. So that is going to be really, really good there. I know that Inoue is going to be set up for something, probably if not within the next couple of months, then by December. So he's going to have a fight.
I'll be honest, man. I'll be honest. This is a pick'em fight for me still. I know a lot of people are starting to favor Bam, but I'm sorry, man. The power, the ring IQ, the footwork.
Yeah.
Bam has never seen that in the ring. He's always used to having the high IQ in the ring, with whomever he faces. He's never played chess with a guy like the Monster.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the best fight of the year. And it's in a division where it almost always delivers.
Right.
122 is our most action-filled. It's that perfect combination of all action and high elite level ring IQ.
Yeah, super bantam. Yeah. So
122 is arguably the most entertaining and the division that delivers most frequently. When is the last time you've seen a boring, uneventful fight at 122?
Really, a number of the fights have been either strong fight of the year candidates or fight of the year. So, yeah, I think that's been pretty much the perfect mix here so far. If it hadn't been like 154 a couple of years ago, but after 154, when Jamel ended up clearing the division, after that it's basically been 122. So you got that there real quick.
The 122 division is straight fire. And look, don't expect neither Bam nor the Monster to move up to 26. Look at those fucking monsters. My apologies, dude. I'm sorry I cussed. Look at those monsters at 26. Who in their right mind is going to move up to take on Espinoza? That's basically the Seabass Fundora featherweight.
Yeah, pretty much is. So I don't think Inoue is much of a rush to move up to 26, or else he would have been up there already. So that's how you had that. Hey, just real quick before we get on that next one, Brother Terrell, what do you think about that move there from Bam Rodriguez? Seeing about getting to the point where it could face Naoya Inoue in 2027.
Yeah, that's been out there brewing for quite some time, as Bam's been doing great work at 115, 118, and we kind of expected this. I think Turkey wanted this fight sooner rather than later, but once again for Bam, there's no need to rush, right? No need to rush that. I mean, even if even rush that, what if he exposes him, he's not ready at that weight class too soon and goes up there and get washed? That's not good. So I'm glad that he has someone like Robert Garcia on his team, right? Dude said, who's been a champion himself, a fighter himself, right? Who knows exactly how to guide his fighter, right? So we all want to see that fight. I'm great to hear that Bam got a contact with Turkey that puts us there directly in line with the fight. But once again, no need to rush that and expose your fight when he's doing when you're going up in weight. We know that our classics, you go up weight class, does your power follow, your skills follow, all that stuff like that.
Mhm.
And we have to answer that question to every fighter. So once again, no need to rush that. But I'm great to hear the news of that, and great to be on the breaking news for that. So thank you for that, Joseph.
Yep.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I am here for you guys.
Yep. And
look,
he said,
I'll be honest, brother. I'll be honest. I have to say, man, I am most excited. Now, everyone come November, most people in the UK, they're going to be excited for Fury Joshua. Brother, this is the fight. I want to see Virgil versus Little Charlo. That is going to be straight fire, guys. Both guys can punch. Virgil obviously has the puncher's advantage. But Charlo is a great counterpuncher. He's got great legs. We'll see if he still has the stuff, though, after this long layoff.
right. You know,
Because who's ever dominated? Now, once again, Charlo, he looked like he wasn't even interested in fighting, right? Against Canelo.
yeah.
But
After those few rounds, that was it. He mentally checked out.
They didn't want to become Errol Spence Jr. #2. He was just there ringside. Remember?
Yep.
A couple months before. Ringside, being his stablemate, get busted up and knocked into retirement, basically. He didn't want that to happen to him. That's why he checked out. I know this to be true.
Yeah, he maneuvered, pretty much like to make sure he got through those 12 rounds, it looked like, in that September 2023. So,
what did he say immediately following post-fight in the press conference?
Man.
I didn't get knocked out, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was there,
like
but
he was proud of that.
Yeah, you can't, as someone that you would want to that had come off of proving yourself to be the top fighter at 154. So,
but when he competes, when Charlo is locked in, when he's hungry, boy, he is awfully tough to beat.
Yeah,
this is going to be, in my opinion, the fight of the year. Both guys, their pride, their futures are on the line. Virgil Ortiz, with all of this grandstanding with his manager, he cannot afford to lose this. Not to someone like Jermell.
Nope.
But Jermell, boy, he is so multifaceted. He's a complete fighter. He can bang on the inside. He can box you using lateral movement. He can use he can do it all. So we're going to see who the better fighter is. And I thank you, PBC, and thank you, Golden Boy.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here, man. That's definitely.
With that said, I cannot wait to be front and center for Navarrete versus Foster in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's October. That's gonna be something, man. That was one of the main topics here.
If anyone thought that Oshaki Foster's performances were less than scintillating, well, there's the solution. You put Navarrete in the ring with him, he's going to make you fight. We are going to see the best of both men. You guys expect a fight of the year candidate. This is going to be a great all-action fight, guys, and it's going to bring the best out of Oshaki Foster. I can guarantee it.
Hey, that's the thing that he's been looking for, especially since he had been signed with Top Rank back in 2024, early part of 2024. He had the WBC belt then, and we thought he would have had to fight with Navarrete when Navarrete just had the WBO title, but they didn't make the fight happen, and with Foster, he did lose that bout by decision to Roberson Conceição in Newark, and then got it back in the rematch. So, but he's kind of like proved himself, and he stepped up, and he had that great performance against Stephen Fulton, and turned around and had the performance he had against Raymond Ford earlier this year. So. Finally, he gets his opportunity to face Navarrete after Navarrete had an absolutely great performance against Sugar Nunez earlier this year. That was probably one of the better performances I've seen this year.
And that's the thing. Emmanuel Navarrete, when people count him out, he almost seems to rise to the occasion, to the level of his opposition. So, guys, expect the best version of Emmanuel Navarrete as well. This is why I love this matchup. Shockey's smart, durable. He's got some crack in his shot. But Emmanuel Navarrete is going to force him to work for all 3 minutes of every round.
Yeah.
This is going to bring out the best of both men. This is a brilliant job of matchmaking by Brad Goodman. And you don't expect anything less from him.
Yeah. And, what thing with Navarrete, with his performance that he had, because he changed his camp up before that fight against Eduardo Nunez to where he has some nutritionists, and so he ain't really struggling to try to make weight there 130, and you've seen the difference there in that fight. So if he's like having a similar camp here, then yeah, he's gonna be in tip top shape for this bout to see who the best fighter is at 130 pounds. And
this is one of the best matchups of the year, James. I'll tell you what isn't one of the best matchups of the year. Did you guys mention earlier Hamza Sheeraz versus Janbeck Ali Manala?
I did before you called in, man. I'm like, what is this?
That's gonna be like watching paint dry, guys.
Oh man, but it's nasty work.
Sheeraz was just exposed. If you have that upper body, head, and that movement that freezes Sheeraz. He's a counterpuncher by trade. He thrives off of guys who want to bang and come forward in the pocket. If you've got a prolific counterpuncher that has that same herky-jerky movement, it's going to freeze him. And then we all know that Janbeck doesn't take the lead. This is going to be like watching my front lawn grow.
Oh man, I'm not
that matchup.
Oh man, I'm not looking forward to it. Hey, shout out to the WBO for ordering that particular fight. And speaking of the WBO, you talk about how
gone without Paco.
They
suck without Paco, man.
You talk about that whole thing there, right? And then you have this great matchup between Navarrete-Foster and Emmanuel Navarrete, and the WBO has the nerve to say that they might strip Emmanuel Navarrete for him not fighting Charlie Suarez again.
Oh my gosh, please, no.
And I think the only reason that they are bringing this up, or the possibility that they're bringing this up, is because Charlie Suarez is a leading candidate to be the opponent for Vasily Lomachenko.
Oh, jeez. Dude, I haven't heard anything on... I'll be honest, I haven't heard anything from Vasily Lomachenko coming back. Ugh. That news has gone dormant.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a darn thing, and I talked to everybody.
Yeah, you can talk to the parties there for Top Rank. You can talk to Igis Klimas, or anybody that's part of the management team there for Vasily Lomachenko. Like, I hadn't really heard much since since May.
Yep.
So, man, yeah, I just think that it would be ridiculous if the WBO just ends up stripping Emmanuel Navarrete just for Charlie Suarez to fight.
Terrible.
Come on.
That's terrible. But hey, man, once again, without Paco's leadership, WBO is really losing its luster. Yeah. I'm sorry. They're making Mauricio Suleiman look like Jose. Did I just say that out loud?
Oh, that's bad. He got someone on the live chat there though. He says, you know what? Who cares about the belts? The people know who the best 130-pounder would be there between Navarrete and Foster as far as like the winner.
True. You know what? Once again, proving our point that the fighters make the belts, not the other way around, guys.
Yeah. So they have on that front.
Look, man. Honestly, I thought it was great what Usyk did, relinquishing all of his titles, so we can see other badasses and great matchups in play, like we're going to see on August 29th.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Moses Itelma versus Filip Hrgović. I'll be honest, guys. I thought, okay, this should be a one-sided mismatch. It should look like because of the. Filip Hrgović is starting to look like Joe Joyce in his sloth movement in the ring.
Yeah.
But after watching that face-off, I'm like, that's how it's done. That's how it's done. He just performed chess with a young man who has never been tested before. And I'm afraid he's gotten in Moses' head. Did you see Moses starting to get pissed off?
Yeah, I
see
that.
that.
Yeah, I had seen that.
I loved it. I thought it was so. I was like, okay, Moses. This kind of reminds me of Floyd Jr. versus Arturo Gatti, where one guy claims to have the better chin, the better heart, the better power, and Floyd's like, you know what, you're a C-level fighter, and he proved it in the ring. He fought a smart, strategic, disciplined fight, moving in and out of the pocket, never giving him a chance to counter effectively, couldn't time Floyd's speed, couldn't match it, and he was dead in the water. That's how it should play out on the 29th. But now I'm not sure. Moses, it's like Philip was like, you know what? You need to prove how tough you are. You cannot be a great fighter if you don't have a chin, and we've never seen it. And it's going to be tested. And Moses is like, are you sure? He's like, well, you can't be a great fighter if you don't have a good chin. So just look throughout your boxing history. What determines all of your success is being durable.
That's how you take a punch. But
that's it.
So
look at Victor Ortiz. Look what happened to his career when he found out, he wasn't all that durable.
Yeah, he wasn't all that durable. And now you see what his moniker was there in this close of his career.
So
but now,
if you guys haven't watched that face-off yet, watch it before the 29th, because that fight with that face-off just got cranked up to first class, and it's for the IBF heavyweight title now. Thank you,
Joseph.
Yep,
Joseph, I have a question from something you mentioned earlier. This Mike, how you doing, brother?
Good to see you, man.
Yep. Good to hear you too, brother. So with the
he's kind of like breaking back and forth there. I think he was gonna.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, he's kind of like breaking up.
Rest. Stay at rest. So can you not hear me?
You got to repeat that question there.
So with the Charlo Ortiz fight, I tend to believe that objects in motion stay in motion and objects at rest stay at rest. So we're not going to get anything too much different, in my opinion, than we've gotten when people have 2-3 year layoffs and then they come back. He gonna want to pull the trigger, but so I would 1000% agree with you if he was active. But how long has he been out?
Oh gosh, it's been 3 years, right?
Yep.
He gonna try to pull the trigger, and it's just gonna be clicking. You know how you pull something, it's just like click, 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 click.
I'll say this: it all depends on the individual, right? It all depends on the individual. Yeah, he's not going to be as sharp as he was in his prime, right? But how long was Sugar Ray Leonard off when he fought Marvin Hagler? Before he came out of retirement and fought Marvin Hagler?
Oh man, and I just seen Sugar Ray Leonard yesterday.
Oh man, and it still looks young.
How long was it?
I think I look older than Sugar Ray right now. Chingao.
That was I thought it was like at least a couple years. Hold on, let me check.
2 years, guys. Okay, how long was Tyson Fury out before he fought Deontay Wilder?
Was
He
like
did
about
his
a full.
Undertaker routine.
Oh well, he had two interim fights, but the thing for Leonard against Hagler, that was almost 3 years out.
There it is, guys. Do not look. I'm not saying Jermell Charlo is Sugar Ray Leonard, but he's got that stuff. And if he's motivated, you're not going to see a pincushion. You're not going to see a heavy bag with legs. He's going to fight. He's going to fight. He still believes he has something left. That's why, like, after making $10 million Rock against Canelo, he could have just retired. But he sees, hey, man, I still have something left to prove. And I'm not going to look like Errol Spence Jr. I've never taken that kind of beating. I haven't abused my body like that. I haven't been in those horrific car accidents.
Right.
And I don't fight with that style.
Yeah.
Like when you think about everything that Errol Spence Jr. put his body through. Yeah, Charlo. So, guys, I'm looking for a much more competitive fight than maybe most might initially think.
Yeah.
Charlo is a very well-preserved, however old he is. What is he, 35 now?
Yeah, he should be around that age range.
That's crazy. I remember meeting them as amateurs and when they were 17. Jeez. Man, I'm old.
But yep, that's that's the thing, man. Is gonna be how he is gonna react after that extended layoff. I mean, this isn't, like you said, it's not like Errol Spence Jr., but it almost is like how Gary Russell Jr. Came back last year, after an extended layoff where he injured his shoulder, but he was still in the gym. After all that time, he was still in the gym. So
he should have never taken that fight against the tough Filipino because with a torn rotator cuff, you cannot pull the trigger there.
Yeah.
Physically,
so
you can't do it. But look, I'm sorry, Charlo. If you think he's going to be a pushover, think again. He wouldn't be taking this assignment then if he did. Now, that's not saying he won't get his ass whooped because Virgil, he is the real deal, man. Virgil Ortiz is the real. He is a killer.
I'd like to see though.
In the ring. He's a stone cold killer. But I'm expecting a very tough competitive fight between two ferocious competitors. These guys are competitors. And they truly believe in their hearts that they're going to win this.
Yeah.
Both guys would step in the ring with Godzilla if it meant making life-changing money. These guys are gladiators, and they want to fight. They want to fight in the pocket, and they want to prove who the tougher man is. And you have to understand Charlo has probably experienced his quite a bit of embarrassment after the way he conducted himself in his last fight.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to go out like that.
Yeah. I mean, this is like coming off of, the two bouts that he had against Brian Carlos Castaño, especially the rematch there where that was a great action fight until he got the stoppage win. So,
oh man, brilliant. That, in my opinion, that was by far his most impressive performance against the Castaño from Argentina.
Yeah. So
how long ago was that? How long was that fight?
That was 2022. That was
right. So you fast forward to
May 2022, right? Yeah, like I'm looking at it here. May of 2022. I was out there at the Dignity Health Sports Park, man.
Yeah. So look at all the inactivity, and he finally got a Canelo fight, and look what he did with that. So I value all the points you guys just made for Charlo, but I totally question his hunger, and I would not doubt if he goes in that fight with Ortiz and lays an absolute dud and fades away in the black.
I don't know. Maybe, hey, this is something, right? Virgil Ortiz Jr.'s last fight was against Erickson Lubin. There at the what is that? In Fort Worth, right?
Yep.
Now everybody was talking about Boots Sanders stepping in the ring. There were Virgil Ortiz Jr. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Jermell Charlo also in attendance for that fight?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, just maybe, he was scouting. He was scouting Virgil Ortiz Jr. at that point, and he, kind of like been back and forth in the gym, just getting himself, in shape to be ready for a fight of that magnitude. Maybe they could have teased that fight since November. So they probably was in his ear since then. And then now they could probably get this thing worked out and make that fight actually happen. So he's probably been in the ring. I mean, in the gym.
This is just once again brilliant maneuvering by Oscar De La Hoya and Eric Gomez, because Eddie Hearn thinks, okay, my guy is going to be the more active. We're going to pick up a third trinket, and we'll have all the negotiating leverage. Who cares about that matchup in the American market? Duran Ennis versus... That's like, did anyone really care about Xander Zayas winning his 2 titles? Did they think he had the most leverage? No, it's all about attraction, level of attraction. And if you're beating someone who is on the radar and moves the needle, if you're in a matchup that moves the needle and grabs the attention of the boxing world, as well as mainstream sports fans, that's going to hold more clout. This is, especially if Virgil does something that no one has ever done before. Stop Jermell Charlo.
Yeah.
And look good doing it. No one has even come close to that.
Yep. So
this is going to be a star-making performance, and that's a big if he's capable of stopping Jermell.
Yep. So we'll see.
Ooh.
We shall see.
He's a killer, though, man. He's a killer, dude. He's got sledgehammers in both fists, in both gloves.
Yeah, but he's also, but that's the thing too. He's also prone to get knocked down. We've seen it. So again,
he got, well, Jermell doesn't fight that way. If you push Virgil on his back foot and you throw that much volume at him, like it's weird. It's a mental thing. He feels like he has to match volume with you. And so it takes something off, takes some of the edge off some of his shots. He doesn't load up then. So, but Jermell has never fought that way, and I can't see him doing that in this fight.
Yep.
Dude, but look, let's be honest. Who was the real loser in that fight?
Nobody.
Boachuk, that performance took years off of his career.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't been the same since.
Yep. So,
yeah, man. Virgil, unless Charlo can back him up and make him respect his power early, yeah, I can't see Virgil taking a back step to Jermell. I can't see it.
Well, we're it looks like we're going to be having a great close here for 2026. I mean, we had like a good start as far as like matchups and things like that.
Oh gosh, and the last thing we're going to be talking about is Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Is there anyone who is looking forward to that now? 2-shot fighters who should have fought 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's that why are they making it public that they're waiting to announce anything in reference to that fight?
Look, we already know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
Have you dropped the news yet? It's going to be November 14th at Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Well, there goes the news.
And the reason being, look, I hate to say this, but Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson ruined boxing for Netflix. Now they're constantly trying to recreate those numbers. How many live viewers did they have at one time around the world for that fight?
60 million.
Yep. They've been trying to recreate that, and they can't seem to. Why? Because there's only one Mike Tyson.
Yep.
Right?
So
that's why they're putting it in the larger American market. And they're like, look, if the British fight fans, if they flew over to see the World Cup, they're going to fly over to see this. We're going to put it in the East Coast. We're going to put it in New York City. And so it'll be in a time zone that's suitable for American viewers. And I was told the reason why they put it in the American market because they said Tyson Fury versus Makhmudov was a complete flop in the American market.
Yeah, of course it would be.
And I was like, that's Makhmudov.
That's Makhmudov. Come on, man. What are they doing?
So that's their reasoning. And so that's why. Oh, boy. And I feel so bad for our British brothers over there, man. They deserve this fight in a big stadium. They deserve it. And it shouldn't cater to an American time zone. It shouldn't cater to an American audience. But Netflix, based out of America, that's their largest market.
Yep.
Every household in America probably more than likely has Netflix.
At least
so
over
that's
50.
Who they're catering to.
Yep.
And that's the only reason why. And unfortunately, fight fans, this is the business. Here's an education in the business. Whose event is it when the network pays the big, steep, multi-million-dollar licensing fee?
Yep. They basically control it. So
it's theirs. They call the shots. They call the shots, guys.
Yeah, it's not the fans.
Their event, and they're paying so much money. From what I've been told, it's well over $200 million for this for one fight.
250 million. How about that?
One fight. $250 million.
Yeah.
For this one matchup. That's what they're paying for. And damn it, you better believe that they're going to have the final say as to what's going on in the production and what time they're going to show it. It's their fight now, guys. So now you know.
Man. Oh, goodness. How am I going to plan out my fall? How am I going to plan out my fall? All of these matchups, man. All of these matchups, you know, like you talk about Navarrete-Foster October, you know, Charlo versus Ortiz in November. This right here, November 14th in Madison Square Garden.
It's a good problem to have, James.
Yeah, it is a very good problem to have. And there's like other matchups that I haven't even mentioned for next month, and some that are, they have dates set for that, we don't have fight cards for yet. So that makes for a great close.
I just wish we could go see live. I wish we could go see Italma versus Hrgovic. And Sam Noakes is making his comeback in the co-main event.
Oh, I didn't even know Sam Noakes was going to be on that card.
Yeah, dude, he's fighting a tough guy. Who's he fighting at 35? A tough guy.
Yeah, he should be back in the mix here. Hold on, I'll look it up here real quick, though. It should be. The former WBO champ, Berinchik.
That's it, Ivan Berinchik. Yes.
It's Dennis.
This is going to be a very tough fight for both men.
Yep. So that's going to be a real scrapper, as they say, there for the co-feature. So just looking forward to all of that there, man. Let's see here. What else? I know that there was, a couple of things that I was going to mention. I did the thing there in reference to Hamza Sheeraz, but what about this other situation? Now, you talked about how the WBO is making Mauricio Suleiman look like Jose Suleiman. But speaking of Mauricio Suleiman, he did send a letter out to a world champion by the name of Noel Mikaelian, who is slated to face Jai Opetaia on that card in Las Vegas.
Oh boy, yeah, you snooze, you lose. I know David Benavidez wanted to make his comeback in November.
Yep.
Against Mikaelian.
Yep.
Yeah, boy, Dana White put a kibosh on those plans.
Well, that's gonna.
You cannot blame the fighters for going where the money is. Look, say what you want about Dana White. I think he's making a terrible decision paying out inflated purses. We all know how that ends, right?
Yep.
Never ends well for the health of the sport. But you cannot blame the fighters. You cannot blame the fighters for going to that high dollar. And David Benavidez and PBC just could not match that purse. So now, what's David Benavidez going to do?
Ooh.
He wants to make his comeback and fight 3 times this year.
Yeah, but that was the thing. Like at least he would have fought twice, because he would have had the fight, against Zerto Ramirez. But some were thinking that he could probably go down to light heavyweight again and compete at light heavyweight, or have that bout against Mikaelian. So they tried to force the hand there with Mikaelian, but it looks like that's not working.
Nope, Jai Opetaia is gonna. Oh man, and you know what? Good for him. Good for him. Good for Zuffa. Look, Mikaelian's solid, but he cannot match the firepower and the skill set of either David Benavidez or natural athletic gifts. He's just not that guy, but he's a solid fighter. He should make it competitive. He should be a great fight either way, either against Jai Opetaia or David Benavidez. But he's gonna get his ass whooped. He's gonna get his ass whooped, guys.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Jai's got too much, man.
Yeah, he does.
Too much hard leather for Mikaelian, man.
And that and then they'll just have him basically get.
Look, I've heard the name Beterbiev mentioned.
But
you cannot plan a fight around that guy anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
He might as well just stroll into retirement. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
His body just cannot do it anymore.
Like, he hasn't been in the ring since that rematch against Bevel. So, what are they going to be doing here at this point?
If I were David Benavidez, I would just, fight Callum Smith at 75 if Bevel and Beterbiev don't materialize. Fight Callum Smith. He's a tough guy. He's got some crack in his shot. That left hook is lethal. He's got a great trainer. Well, if he still has anything left after that last fight in Saudi Arabia, he took a beating in that fight. But who else is he going to fight?
Let me see. Michael Slack.
Who else is he going to fight, guys? Benavidez. But look, he has no choice. Look, here's a lesson in Promotions 101. And we learned this through Bruce Trampler from Top Rank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when Top Rank just signed Juan Manuel Marquez. They're like, look, no one in Mexico loves you because you don't fight like Eric Morales. You don't fight like Julio Cesar
Oh,
Chavez.
yeah, with Marquez, yeah.
You don't fight like those guys.
Yeah, he doesn't have that. He didn't have that style.
Not yet. And then they said, look, the only way we're going to be able to increase your market value is, 1, we need you to stay active. 2, we have no choice but to put you in against the badasses of your respective division. And so if you look, they did a masterful job of sticking him in with fire. And what did we get? Dude, he came out a legend.
He came out a Hall of Famer.
Entire style of fighting. He wanted to prove how tough he was. And it made him a big star. It brought out the best. David Benavidez has no choice. If he wants to increase his market value, he not only has to stay active, but he has to fight the recognized badasses. That includes Beterbiev, that includes Bevel, that includes Jai Opetaia.
Well,
either that or move up and fight Usyk, Holmes.
Well, we'll see. You got someone on the live chat saying for Benavidez, dropping down to 175 at this point would be foolish. Callum would have to move up to cruiserweight.
Why? David Benavidez, he walks around normally a cruiser. He has no problem. Look, I've spoken to his team. He has no problem making light heavyweight. No problem. And if the money is there, why wouldn't he? He had been dropping that much weight anyway.
Yeah.
Because he walks around at cruiser. He walks around at 210. Guys, this is not a problem. This is the hardest part about camp for any fighter. But if you ask Navarrete-Foster, hey, how do you feel about making 30? It's torturous. But hey, I still do it. That's what weight I compete at. I'm the champ, and I've got no problem doing it. I'll do it as long as I can.
Word. Gotcha.
And that's the mentality of these guys. Look, I remember talking to Jesse James Leha. Do you remember James?
Yeah.
He always said, yeah, the way I get through camp, because it's torturous, the wear and tear we take, and killing yourself to make weight. I always saw it as I get paid to train, because the fight night, that's the fun part. Even if you get your ass whooped, that's in front of the lights, the cameras, all the people dress up, your friends come out to see you, you're on TV. That's the fun part. The hard part is in the gym. These guys are used to it. That's why they work as hard as they do. So if they do get buzzed, they recover quickly.
Yeah,
look at Duran Butzetis. Look how quickly he recovered.
Yep.
If you're in great shape, you'll be able to recover.
You'll be able to do that. Yep. So.
And that's why. That's why these guys put their bodies through hell. So this is nothing new for Benavidez.
Word.
He just cannot make 68. Like, he would have to cut off a limb to make 68.
Nope. So, yep, he's done at 168 there. So, like I said, I mean, he's, the plan. Well, like, I thought the original plan was for him to get that date in September, whether it was September 12th or September 19th. That went out the window. Yep. Then they tried to see about getting him in for November against one of those playing opponents. And now with the Mikaelian thing, that's out of the window. So now it looks like they're going to be scrambling to find them an opponent on that front. So we'll see how that goes. But before we close out, I wanted to get a question in that was on the live chat. This is like a overall general question, something to add, less like for all time fighters and stuff like that. So Brother Tyrone Briggs here brings up the topic of Roberto Duran, and he says that Roberto Duran is seen as a top 5 fighter of all time, but he believes he's a top fighter of all time, but he believes that Roberto Duran is slightly overrated, and he says maybe within the top 20. Hold on, but he says that he doesn't like seeing Roberto Duran over Sugar Ray Leonard. Duran is the only fighter in the top 20 all time that has losses the time he was a champion to fighters that were never champion, like Kirkland Lang or Robbie Sims. So what do you view Roberto Duran as far as like all time?
In my opinion, yeah, he's a top. Oh gosh, that's tough, man. All-time great lists. That's tough in terms of lightweight division.
Yeah,
he's the greatest lightweight fighter of all time.
Yeah,
and I've got second. Forgive me for saying this, James, but I believe Sugar Shane Mosley.
Oh yeah,
is right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
He was a stunner. He was so fast, so strong.
Yeah, he was
you
crazy.
Couldn't touch him. He was a killer. And look, Roberto Duran was that way.
Yep.
He was a stone cold killer, completely jumping from 35 to 47 and beating Sugar Ray Leonard's ass. You mean to tell me he's overrated? Are you kidding me? He against Davey Moore at 54, beating that ass. Going up, beating Iran the Blade Barkley at 160.
At 160, I think that one right there was probably his.
Guy's overrated. Are you kidding? And he sat in a pocket and manhandled his opponents. Dude, he didn't just hit and not get hit. No, he went to war. And he started his career at lightweight. And you mean to tell me you think he's overrated? Dude.
Like to where is it? Where was that fight? Where was that fight with the first one with Ray Leonard, right? Like to give him that loss there in 1980. You know what I mean?
I will say this. The only reason why I don't have Roberto Duran probably ranked in the top 10 was exactly why Tyrone is what he's alluding to. And I'll tell you this firsthand. I know this to be true. And he'll even admit it now. He partied way too much in his prime.
Oh, yeah.
Like, way too much. He didn't get the most of himself. And for that reason, yeah, I will say he's not in my top 10. He might crack the top 20. But in my opinion, him being the greatest lightweight fighter of all time, you have to put him in the top 20.
Yep, got to. That's like, one of the, as they say, one of the original weight classes, and one of the feature weight classes that's out there, like lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, heavyweight. I think are the four, premier divisions in boxing. And so,
Okay, I've got a question for you now. Who's the greatest 140 pounder of all time? Tyrone? And you tell me, James, who's your greatest 140 pound junior welterweight of all time? It's not a very old division.
yeah, it's not. It is not. That one, doesn't have that much history behind it, man. So it's like,
who do you say though? Aaron Pryor?
Maybe Aaron Pryor.
Julio Cesar Chavez?
Costa Zoo. It would be Pryor. It would be between Pryor, Zoo, or Chavez. So that would kind of like be it.
Well, I tell you what, man. Oh, wait a minute.
Hold up. Hey, Terrell, you were on something, Terrell?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. I mean, real quick, even with that last argument, Chavez, all-time great fighter, period. Top 5 great. No, you can't say that. There's just too much that's happened since he's been active, despite his accomplishments, things like that. But all-time great, yes. Top 5, no. Can't say that.
Not top 5 all time. Talking about all-time 140 pounders.
Yeah, all-time 140. Someone brought up Terrence Allen Crawford. I say no.
Dude, he had 3 fights at 140.
Basically.
You can't say, dude, his campaign at 135 was stronger.
Yep. So, yeah, can't say Crawford. I mean, he only had, maybe the 2 fights there to become the undisputed champion, and then 1 fight before that.
Well, yeah, he technically, he made his big HBO debut at 140. Remember, he tangled with the guy and outboxed and decisively beat up the guy who knocked out Amir Khan in 1 round.
Oh, who's my guy, man?
Bradis Prescott.
Yeah, Bradis. Oh, well, he did have a few fights there, super lightweight, actually. Delorme, Hank Lundy. Yeah, Hank.
Delorme was at 47.
Delorme. When did he have a fight with Delorme, though?
I thought Delorme was at 47. Did he
no,
beat up
it was he beat up Prescott.
Park Ranger Molina.
He beat up Prescott, but that was at 140. That was at 140.
He was still campaigning at 35 at that time.
Yeah, they had bounced around back and forth. Yep.
So you cannot say Crawford is one of the best 40-pounders of all time. Now, if he stayed there and campaigned there his entire career, maybe. But, man, I just wish we had seen it's a damn shame we never got to see prime Terrence Crawford against someone who was a legitimate badass who could punch like Aaron Pryor or Yazoo or even someone like a prime Julio Cesar Chavez. We never saw that.
What about...
I'll be honest, in my opinion...
Or Miguel Cotto, maybe.
Yeah, or Miguel Cotto, man. Miguel Cotto was a badass at 40.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, dude. Or even Zab Judah at 40, man. We never got to see... And you know what? It really pisses me off that everyone talks about how weak Crawford's resume is, but you cannot fault him for that. You remember that stupid argument that fans and fighters used to use? Oh, he's on the wrong side of the street. That's not his fault. And we were deprived of all of those matchups in their prime.
Yeah, a lot of them.
We never got to see them.
Yeah, especially at 147.
They tried. They sent contracts to Thurman. They wanted those guys, Spence. They wanted all of those guys in their primes. And why wouldn't they? Bob knew what he had. That's why he was overpaying Terrence Crawford. Yeah, well, I'm going to give him this extension because I believe he is the best fighter in boxing right now. We just want the opportunity to prove it. They couldn't get the other badasses at 47 in the ring. That's not his fault. Look at his resume. Jeff Horn, after he beat Manny Pacquiao. Everyone looks at that as weak. You cannot. That was the best guy available.
Yep. And I'm trying to see.
And look at an avoided Igas Kovalyauskas, a guy who had the power to put your lights out, and his timing was impeccable. Two-time Olympian from Lithuania. But he couldn't sell tickets. Everyone avoided him like the plague, except Bud. And he knocked his ass out, handed him his first loss. And he was one of the elite. Who else? Kell Brook, after his prime, he was the only one available.
Around 2020 years. So.
And now you guys are realizing why everyone avoided Terrence Crawford. Because he's that good. And it's a damn shame, man, that we never got to see him handle those guys in his prime. And it pisses me off still to this day. Because Bud is a legitimate badass, dude. Oh, dude, Tyrone actually mentioned Wilfredo Benitez, El Radar.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, dude, that guy was, you couldn't, there used to be a saying, you couldn't hit him with a bag or a handful of rice.
Yeah.
Yo.
Question for you. Bud Crawford. This is an argument he used to make all the time after he re-signed with Top Rank, right? So was there a reason that he had to re-sign with Top Rank? Or he could have left him and potentially went to PBC at the time, right? So talk about that, because that was always one of your biggest.
Talking about that. Why? Look, we're seeing the best fight the best now. Why couldn't Al Heyman work with Bob Arum? He did that with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury.
Well,
why didn't he do that with Terrence Crawford?
Well, he did to a certain extent, but not the top fighters. He had some of his fighters go over the Top Rank to fight Terrence Crawford.
You're talking about Molina? You're talking about Felix Diaz?
Those two.
Yep, you're also talking about Sean Porter.
But remember, with that one, Sean Porter kind of like forced that.
I can't stand when people come up with that argument. Because it's like we're seeing now that these promoters will work with each other.
Yeah, as long as they make the money.
Work with anyone back then.
As long as they make the money, it's always been like that.
Oh, well, that's terrible.
Well, now it's a different argument because now there's pretty much this one boxing platform at this point now, so it's different now. So they have to beat Mustin together, which I love. But back then that was the case because Heyman had to deal with Fox and whoever he had. There's Top Rank with ESPN. There was back in the days of HBO, and they were loyal to their own people. But now everyone's lumped together with one broadcast partner in the zone. So good for us now.
Well, I will say this. There has never been anyone with an exclusive contract with anyone, and PBC proved it. They had contracts with everybody. It was only under the leadership of Ken Hirschman that they were banned from HBO. That was it. Otherwise, they're free to make fight deals with anybody. PBC had contracts with how many networks? James, I think I counted 11 different over 5 years.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, pretty much.
They weren't resigned to any, like, that's nonsense. And why do fans still regurgitate this?
They move around with it. Oh, God, topic says make boxing great again. Oh, goodness.
Look, the only thing that's going to make boxing great again is we solve these three problems, and I'm in agreement with most that it's unsolvable. One, the biggest problem within the boxing business today is piracy. Until you can solve that dilemma, good luck. It wrecked the music business. So now there's no more money to be made with albums, CD sales, cassettes. You can't make any money from that. And so how did the music industry solve that? Well, we just go on tour more. Instead of having a world tour every 2.5 years, once every 2.5 years, we're going to tour nonstop. This is the best time to be a live music fan. Unfortunately, in boxing, you can't send a guy out every single month to make money.
Nope.
You can't do that. So how do we solve the piracy issue? Okay, that's number one. Two, why are we still paying out inflated purses? Look at Devin Haney. He hasn't fought in almost a year, and he's got nothing on the schedule. And he's pricing himself out of every deal. Why? Because he's grown accustomed to receiving inflated purses, and you cannot fault the fighter.
And you see what Tyrone Briggs said, if people like Haney and Shakur make boxing lame.
Okay, and that's okay, so we just addressed two problems.
Yeah.
Once again, paying out inflated purses, it doesn't end well for the health of sport. Because if a guy grows accustomed to making millions for soft touches, how much do you think he's going to think he deserves to step in the ring with a real challenge? He's going to want you to break the bank. Never ends well. It makes it virtually impossible to put together the best fights. Number three, and this is the most controversial one, it's a crap product now. Too many guys are defensive-minded, safety first. They like to pick and poke. They like to just engage in fencing contests. No one likes to bang in the pocket anymore. Go watch Felix Trinidad versus Fernando Vargas, guys. And you'll be reminded of how fights used to deliver on the pay-per-view stage. Now, you have mainstream fight fans holding their noses. Like what happened? What did Shakur say, right? When he was on the show with
Shannon Sharp.
What did he say? When he said, "Hey man, do you think you're not going to get enough credit because of the style, how you fight?" You know, what style is that? Well, forgive me, forgive me for saying this, but it's not very entertaining, Shakur. What was his response? Oh man, you don't know shit about boxing. You can't fault the man. And dude, he is regurgitating the sentiment of millions of sports fans who used to watch boxing. They don't anymore because it's become a shit product. In my opinion, the only way to fix it is if you've got to press the reset button. All of these entitled defensive first, safety-minded bitches who don't want to fight, don't want to engage, want to wrap you up like an octopus every time you breach that perimeter. Say no to them. Say, hey, we'll feature you for fair market value, but we're not going to pay you these inflated purses any longer.
So when Shakur Nafisa, Stevenson ends up fighting Ryo. Oh no, I mean maybe not Ryo, but when he ends up fighting for $15 million, the fans can make their statement.
See what I mean? It's ruined the sport in the American market. Once again, do we have these problems in the UK? No. And look at the crowd. Like, look at the fight we got with Cunningham and O'Leary in Dublin, Ireland. That was a fantastic throwdown. That was a great fight. And did you hear the crowd?
Yep.
They were electric. They were on fire. They made the event. We don't get that in America anymore. What do we get? Look at the big draw, Claressa Shields. How was that card, guys?
Yeah.
It was disgraceful. If we're being honest, it was absolutely disgraceful, guys. And we want mainstream fans to see that? No. Look, I'll say this. Rolly Romero and Teofimo Lopez may have painted themselves into a corner by saying, oh, we're friends. We've been friends for 10 years. He's my little brother. And I'm just happy to give him this opportunity. Well, boy, you better throw down now.
Yep. We'll see.
You better throw down now because what is everyone going to say if it doesn't sizzle in the ring?
It'll be a domino effect.
They're friends, man. We shouldn't have paid for this. It's going to leave a bad taste in the mouth of everybody. Oh, Lance is bringing up Caballero. Well, you better fight for big money now, Junior, because the style that you fight, you're going to be the next Joe Joyce, son.
Well, Cabia, I don't know. Maybe they could put him in there against Rico Verhoeven or something. I don't know, man. we'll
Dude,
see, man.
Honestly, yeah, he's going to fight sometime by the end of this year. In my opinion, you're going to hear Dubois announced for November as well. And
Oh yeah, for that rematch.
Dubois versus
Fabio Wardley.
And let me ask you something before I leave, James. Do you think? And look, I understand his team's logic in taking this. They said, "Well, look, we don't know if we're ever going to get this opportunity ever again." And my question is it too soon, and is it worth it?
It's too.
Because if he takes another bludgeoning, that might be curtains for him in his boxing career.
It's too soon. It's too soon. He just we just like got this world title there as far as like being elevated to WBO heavyweight champion after scoring the win against Joseph Parker. Gets that win, he has all the confidence in the world going up against Daniel Dubois. Then he scores those knockdowns against Daniel Dubois. So you would think his confidence is through the roof. But to get beaten the way that he did, that really takes a lot out of you. Especially after being the first fight. And
James is right, and especially in the heavyweight division, guys.
And this is not much different than what we saw in February of 2020 when Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury in that rematch, and Tyson Fury beat him up. Hasn't been the same since.
No, he's a shell of himself. That fight, and I hate to say this, Tyson Fury's never been the same since either.
Yeah.
He took, that was Deontay's last stand, and dare I say that was the last truly great heavyweight fight that we've seen.
Oh, the third fight was the last great one.
Like that's what I'm saying. His last stand, that third fight took everything out of both men.
Yeah.
They haven't been the same since. I know Tyson has recovered a little bit more, and he had a great showing against Usyk in his first
fight
with him, but he hasn't been the same since. He doesn't have that same durability.
Yeah. So
and it doesn't seem like he's willing to engage anymore. Like that's the last time we saw Tyson really throw down in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time we'll ever see him throw down in the pocket. That was an amazing fight, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. Now, ask yourself, guys, that fight I watch at least once a year still, right? Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 3.
Yeah.
How many fights 10 years from now are we gonna watch that it includes Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney? I'll wait.
There you go.
Are we going to be talking about their fights 10 years from now like we do Miguel Cotto, Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, Floyd Mayweather Jr.?
Shane Mosley.
Are we going to be talking about their
Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya was a badass. Felix Trinidad.
Yep.
Fernando Vargas. Hell, even Ricardo Mayorga. We still talk about his fights.
Yep.
Are we going to be talking about Haney, Shakur, all of those defensive-minded panochas 10 years from now?
They got to have something, man, or else we're going to be in a bad state. We're going to be in a bad state here. So
something has to be done. And unfortunately, Dana White and Turkey aren't doing it. They're doing the same stupid maneuvers that Heyman did, Eddie Hearn did, just to attract talent, and that's overpay these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, Rolly Romero was just on DAZN. He said something absolutely brilliant. He said, this is why boxing's dying in America, because these guys have a safety-first mentality. They've got a survivor mentality. They're just trying to get as much money as they can and make it to the next fight. No one throws down anymore. No one fights anymore. And he's not wrong.
Yep. So
that's the problem, guys.
Gonna have to.
That's why you see the difference in, like, I'll give you an example. Thomas Triber, my dear friend, Double T, right?
Yep.
In my opinion, the best ring announcer in boxing right now. Right? When he goes to the UK, he's mobbed. He's a celebrity over there. And why? Because boxing is still a mainstream pastime. Here, no one recognizes him. Why do you think that is? It's all about the fighters, guys. And if they're not willing to take risks in the ring, no one's going to tune in. People want to be inspired. They want to see something that they'll never be able to do in their lifetime. You and me, James, can we get in the ring and try to survive for 12 rounds?
I don't think I have the ability to try to survive for 6 rounds.
Let's just say 4 rounds on
Right.
the undercard. We can try to survive,
Right.
run around,
Right.
we can poke, look like we're afraid to get hit. No one wants to pay to see that.
Yeah.
Why would these guys think that that effort is worth millions? Like, look at Haney versus Ramirez. That was disgraceful.
It was.
Look at Ryan versus Rolly Romero. That was disgraceful. We don't, dude, no one wants to pay to see that. Look at Charlo versus Canelo. That was disgraceful.
That was bad.
That's why, guys. And unfortunately, and I'll never forget, a dear friend of mine who used to watch all the pay-per-views with me. He said, you know what, Joe, after the Canelo Charlo fight, he said, you know what, Joe, this is why I'm not into boxing anymore, because maybe I'm stupid, maybe I don't know what I'm looking at, but I usually like to see more fight in my fights. And he's not wrong. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. There it is.
You have to.
Hey, don't forget the news, guys. Don't forget the news.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through that.
What did we say?
I'm gonna go through all of that for y'all. So first off, Ben Rodriguez signed the fight through Turkey LLC. 2 fights. One coming up here, scheduled for October 31st on the undercard for Canelo versus Billy. And then after that October 31st fight, he will be lined up to face Naoya Inoue in a super fight in March of 2027. And then next up, you do have Virgil Ortiz Jr. slated to fight Jermell Charlo in Texas in November. That is slated for November. Okay, so we got those 2 fights, or those 2 news things there dropped by brother Joseph Herring. I might end up coming up with a fall schedule of sorts with fights that have been signed or they look like they'll be locked up for the end of 2026. So y'all can look forward to some great fights or great matchups coming up here before the end of 2026. There, so we're definitely looking forward to all of that. I'll be either coming up with a graphic or something where I just do like a quick segment of that here coming up, and just definitely looking forward to all of that here through the boxing source. But it's been a real good conversation here with brother Joseph Herring that's been calling guest. Of course, you had the boxing academic that joined in, and the resident chef of the boxing source, brother Terrell, was able to join in here for this podcast. And thanks for everyone that's been watching here live or listening live here. So we'll be able to see if we can come up with the audio version here later on down the line. So definitely looking forward to all of that. And had like one comment up there that said like the guy should have needs his own radio podcast. I'm like, yeah, brother Joseph does have this podcast of sorts there with War a Week Boxing. Okay, so you follow him on War Week Boxing on YouTube and
WAW Boxing.
Yeah,
Yes.
WAW Boxing. Okay, so you'll be able to follow him there on YouTube. So that's what we have here on Slate that's coming up. But like I said, I'll come up with the graphic of sorts there that kind of like show the fights that are for y'all to look forward to. And of course, have that unification bout there at 130 pounds from Emmanuel Navarrete versus Navarrete-Foster. They're having that for San Antonio. It looks like it will be for October 24th there as well. So that should tell you what we got for the sport of boxing. But again, the fans gotta support these fights in a sense there on that instance, right? So
now consider this, guys, once again. I don't know if James has dropped this, but it's shocking. And I know our brother, my father Terrell, right?
Yeah, his brother Terrell.
He was talking about, well, it's easier to make fights because everyone's on one network now. And you would think then that there's no reason not to subscribe, right? But when you look at the subscriber numbers on DAZN, it's shocking. They're just slightly above 400,000 subscriptions. They're like 422,000. That's it. Now, so that should tell you what a big problem piracy is. No business model can survive if the demographic that they're depending on isn't financially supporting it. None.
Yep.
No business model can survive. So guys, support your favorite pastime. Get that look. It's worth every penny. Throw down every month $45 and buy the DAZN package. You get to see every major fight. And now there's no excuse. Top Rank as well as PBC are now working with DAZN in Turkey Al Sheikh. There's no excuse, guys. Just pay for it every month, $45. Lord knows we spent more on worse.
Yeah. Yep. We have.
Jeez.
We have.
So guys, please support your beloved boxing. Okay? Now, I understand the product isn't what it used to be, but it's a lot better than being without. We still enjoy fights, several great fights every single month. Pay for the package, and you know what sucks because of all the piracy? We're basically having to pay for everyone who's stealing it illegally.
That's how it usually works out. That's how it works out.
That's why we're having to spend $45 a month.
Yep.
Compared to the $9.99 that DAZN started as.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we're having to pay for everyone who's stealing it. If you want that price to go down, encourage everyone to pay for it. That's the way it works, guys.
Yep.
And because I was, well, look, I don't. Should I say this on the air?
I might want to hold it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to hold it.
Anyway, thank you, James, for your hospitality, brother. I love your show, man.
Yep. Great that you're able to come on here for this show here, Joe. And like I said,
you,
all right, man.
I'll see you on Tuesday, brother. We're gonna restart the show with Ronnie on Tuesday.
All right, got it. No problem.
God bless you, my friend. God bless all of you guys listening.
All right. All right. So there was Brother Joseph, and he did say that we will kind of resume there with Real Boxing with Ronnie Shields on Tuesday coming up. And we should have a few things there as far as like a few news nuggets for that show as well, because, Coach Ronnie did kind of like tell me that he has a couple of his fighters that will have fights coming up in October. So we'll kind of like, bring that up on Tuesday there. So you'll be able to see even more action there, whether it's through, I would say, Pro Box or PBC or something like that. You'll be able to see more on the schedule. So as I mentioned, it's going to be a very, very busy schedule. I would say starting in September, you would have, let's just start with the fight on TNT with Andy Ruiz Jr. There against Damian Neba. You're gonna have some on that weekend. You got the thing with Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn the following weekend. We'll see about having something for September 19th. But then after that, we're gonna have week after week after week of fights. So y'all will be able to look forward to it. If I can, like I said, I'll come up with the schedule for y'all to check out, and it'll be available on social media. But y'all have heard the news, and I did post news at least on X there as far as like those two announcements with Jesse Bam Rodriguez and with Virgil Ortiz Jr. So With that being said, that brings a close to this edition of the Boxing Source podcast. Thanks for everyone that's been able to listen live. And until next time, folks, I will catch y'all later. Peace out.